Welcome into another Roar of the Lions UK podcast. This is the Day 3 and General 2026 NFL Draft Recap Show. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Anthony Fitzpatrick. We've slept, mate. It feels odd.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Managed to get a full night of sleep behind me, which is absolutely tremendous. And yeah, feel like $1,000,000 today. So, but still tired overall. Like draft season is long, it's arduous. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and then just like that, it's gone. You're like, damn, I did all that work just for that short amount of time. But hey, completely worth it. It's been a lot of fun, and it's nice just to sort of get here to the Sunday and be able to just relax and look at all the chaos that's unfolded and have a few more thoughts about it.
Yeah, and in some ways, it's quite nice that it's just the two of us to finish. As you know, it's again adds to that sort of relaxation. We've had an unbelievable set of draft shows. I don't want to say it just because it's the most recent one, and I don't want to say it just because it's the one that we've just done and therefore the most proud of. But I genuinely think in terms of the caliber of guests, the number of guests, and how it's spread across the league, that it's been our highest quality set of draft shows. If you haven't watched them all back, if you do just skip to when we actually have guests on, I think you'll see some unbelievable interviews from some very knowledgeable people. So, and I think we should be deservedly very proud of what we've achieved.
Mm. Absolutely. And again, I'm gonna tag everyone later, but to all the guests that did come on, they were all absolutely amazing. And as I say, they make it what it is. I know people come on to hear about the Lions stuff with us, but like 3 full days of us just talking about Lions can get monotonous and boring, especially when you're waiting 50 picks between and you kind of run out of things to say. So to have all these other teams come on and impart their knowledge and about their draft picks and how they're going to fit, and it kind of can make people understand the picks that other teams have made and what they might do. So it just adds so much more depth to everything that goes on.
Mm. Right, we're going to recap the entire draft. We're going to do it in brief. Obviously, we've already had a look at day 1 and 2, so there might be a more focus on more day 3 stuff. We're going to look back and see which classes overall we like and don't like, and then we're going to address, obviously, because of what we do, a little bit more just about the Lions picks, and really have a look just very briefly at the UDFAs. We may do a little bit more in detail in the coming weeks on the UDFAs, as well as, of course, do some rookie tape breakdown for the Lions draft picks. That's coming up in the next weeks and months. But let's start off with the Arizona Cardinals. And their draft went like this. At 3, Jeremiah Love, running back to Notre Dame. At 34, Chase Pesontis, guard, Texas A&M. Carson Beck at 65, quarterback, Miami of Florida. Caleb Proctor at 104, the defensive tackle from southeastern Louisiana. Reggie Virgil at 143, the wide receiver from Texas Tech. Carson Chara at 183, the linebacker from Iowa. And then finishing off with Jaden Williams, a tackle from Ole Miss, at 217. Compared to my consensus board, that lost 602 picks of value, but that was really hurt by the last 2 picks being basically at the back end of the board. The rest of it was by the by, really. And what do you make of their class overall? I mean, looking at day 3, because we've already looked at day 2, they started off strong with Caleb Proctor.
They did. I look at this overall, and like, there's a lot of talented footballers there. It all goes back to that first pick and whether that was kind of the one they needed at the time, and that was the way for them to build. But certainly, Caleb Proctor is going to add a new dimension to that defensive line. I mean, you're pairing him with Walter Nolan, so I mean, good lord, you're going to have one of the best. Already, even though he's a short part into his tenure, those two are going to form a really terrific defensive tackle tandem. And I look forward to seeing what he can do, especially when Nolan's fully healthy next year. So I think that was a great pick. Reggie Virgil, incredibly underrated. Can't believe he was the second Texas Tech receiver off the board. Ryan adores Reggie Virgil, has ever since his Mac days. Like he destroyed the Mac, got the move to Texas Tech, and he, adjusted to that level of competition very easily. Became one of Baron Morton's most trusted targets very quickly. And again, I wouldn't put it past him to be able to take the level of competition in his stride and really succeed. He's a really underrated receiver, Reggie Virgil, isn't he? If someone's going to pop in their first year, um, potentially he could in that system. I think if it is going to be Brissett under center, he's going to love having a Reggie Virgil on there. He's tough, he's tenacious, he's just always going to get open and be available to him. So, love that little fit there for them. After that, Sherrard, Williams, I don't know as much about those two, but obviously sixth and seventh round picks, you'll have to see what it is with those. But I think overall, it's all defined by those first 2 days for me. They kind of got those a little wrong. Obviously, Basontis was great, but I think day three overall they did really good. So I think you'll find hidden gems in that Arizona draft class, for absolute sure.
Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons. Days 1 and 2 were just 2 picks. Avion Terrell at 48, corner from Clemson, and Georgia wide receiver Zachariah Branch at 79. Moving on to day 3 for them, only 4 picks and therefore 6 in total. Starting at 134, they drafted Kendall Daniels, the safety from Oklahoma, Antario Thompson, the defensive tackle from Washington at 208, Harold Perkins Jr., linebacker LSU at 215, and Ethan Onyanwa, interior offensive lineman from Ohio State at 231. I think that was one actually, and that you didn't recognize the name of as well, so it wasn't just me. But looking at this draft, there's a few names in there. They only went in with 6 picks after trading away their first round of last year. It's an interesting class. For them, they lost 331 picks of value, but that mainly comes off Ontario Thompson not being on the board at all.
Yeah, this one's a bit more of a this maybe is not the best. Kendall Daniels, I mean, he's one of those so he's a safety turned linebacker, but he can kind of do both. He's another one who's just quite long, quite rangy. This is a very traits-based pick because he's got a lot of fundamental problems, but I mean, that Oklahoma defense was a juggernaut last year and all of them contributed to it being as such. So I can see the upside with him. So that could potentially be some decent value there in the fourth. Harold Perkins, for all his flaws and as much as Brian Kelly messed him up in life, that could be some serious value in round six if they find the right position for him. This is a guy who was, once upon a time, a top 10 pick in the draft, and Brian Kelly ruined him because they turned him into a coverage linebacker because of his height. I still think he's got a future as a designated pass rusher, a specialist pass rusher. Despite the lack of size there with him, he showed that he could do it. And again, LSU just completely mismanaged him into the ground and, took him out of his wheelhouse. So if you can kind of fix that, and find a position where you can have him as your designated pass rusher and develop him that way. I think for a sixth round pick, you could get some really, really good value out of him. So, I can see why he went that low, but at the same point, that is a bat swing that could really pay dividends. The other two are just like they're befuddling to me. That is cases of picks where someone's really done a deep dive. These are intimate knowledge type things where they know stuff we don't because on the face of it, they're just two really incredibly high reaches when there were more, when there were better players around at the time. So it's a little bit of both. There's nothing bona fide there for them, but certainly for me, there's two that could really hit if the circumstances are right.
Moving on to the the Baltimore Ravens. They had all the picks, as the Baltimore Ravens always do. Starting off in days 1 and 2 that we've already talked about at 14 with Oliver Vega Ioane, the guard from Penn State, Zion Young, edge defender from Missouri at 45, and Jacoby Lane, the wide receiver from USC at 80. Moving into day 3, and they ended up double dipping at wide receiver between the late second day and early third day with Elijah Surratt at 115, wide receiver from Indiana. Went and got Matthew Hibner, the tight end from SMU at 133. Chandler Rivers, the cornerback from Duke at 162. Josh Cuevas, the tight end at Alabama, 173. And then the very next pick at 174 is Adam Randall, running back from Clemson. They've got the punter from Michigan State, Ryan Eckley at 211. Rayshawn Benny, the defensive tackle from Michigan at 250. And Evan Bernstein, the interior offensive lineman from Northwestern at 253. And we know the Baltimore play the comp pick game like nobody else. So they had 8 picks on day 3. They smashed, well, the first 2 picks, shall we say, in terms of just picking good players. However they blossom out. They've taken a lot of bat swings elsewise.
Yeah, they have. And for me, they've really played hopscotch between the good and the bad line here. You start off with Elijah Sarrett, which is a tremendous pick. Tremendous. I love Elijah Sarrett. I love Elijah Sarrett more than Omar Cooper. He's been Indiana's better receiver for the most part. And, with Lamar, I think Lamar's going to love him. Again, he's just one who's got a natural ability to separate, just to find those gaps in coverage and just be an absolute menace. I think he's going to contribute sooner rather than later. In Baltimore, so I love the Elijah Sarrett pick. Then you go and draft the second string tight end out of SMU, which is just absolutely crazy to me, and Matthew Hibner, although the other one didn't get drafted, weirdly enough, but that's way too high for someone of his skill set. So that was really befuddling for me. But then they went and got Chandler Rivers, which is an awesome pick. Chandler Rivers really shouldn't have been in the 4th round. He's been a lockdown corner for Duke. There's a lot to like about him. I know he's slightly a bit on the smaller side, but
5th round even as well for Chandler Rivers.
Fifth round, sorry, yeah. There's no way he should be there at that point. So I think he's absolutely tremendous value at that point, and he's going to be a great corner for the Ravens. Then you go tight end again with Josh Cuevas, who was nowhere near the best tight end on the board at this point. They must have a specific plan for these guys, but they hopscotched onto the bad again. I just really don't get either of those whatsoever. Then you hopscotch onto the good side. You do get Adam Randall. He's not my favorite player in the world, but I think Adam Randall fits what they need. They have like a lot of gadgety guys there. This is a guy who's just going to run through the tackles and thump and third down, short yardage situation guys. Like, he will fill a little hole in that running back room that they don't have.
Well, and he can also, when Derrick Henry wants to come off the board, you can keep the playbook similar.
Yeah, exactly. So, it works there for him. And then, obviously, first special teamer in the draft. Really good for them. Michigan State gets a player drafted as well. Their highest drafted player is a punter. Then Rayshawn Benny and Evan Bernstein. I mean, at that point, I really like Evan Bernstein, the guard out of Northwestern. I think he could be a sneaky guy who makes the roster from the 7th round. But I do quite like him. So they did well there, and I'm not really big on Benny. So yeah, they really hopscotched for me on day 3. But day 3, it is what it is. There are a lot of swings and misses and what we don't get. So
I'm gonna inhabit Ash as well as little as I can on this show, but I will do it once. Michigan State had a player go 2 picks earlier than Ryan Eckley. Matt Golbin went at 209 to Washington.
I thought he went a little bit later.
No, I thought you were right too, but I was like, I'll check. Considering that Baltimore had 11 picks, it's quite easy for you to lose a lot of value on your picks because you're just taking so many swings, you might as well take swings. Well, they only lost 370 picks of value compared to Arizona's 602 and Atlanta's 331, and Atlanta made half as many picks. So I think Baltimore have actually done quite a good job, generally speaking, in terms of finding value in some places. Elijah Surratt, 36 places of value. Chandler Rivers, 79 places of value. So, they actually, despite the fact that they reached for Jacoby Lane and a couple of other people, they found value too.
I bet the punter was responsible for a bit of that, wasn't he?
231 picks lost, yeah.
There you go. So if you take the punter out, it kind of seems even better.
Yeah, I just completely agree. Right, let's move on to Buffalo, and they had a lot of picks too. I mean, obviously they had a few trade downs, and that's something to do with it, but they had 10 picks in total. Days 1 and 2 were TJ Parker and Davison Igbonason. Parker, edge, Clemson at 35, Igbonason, cornerback, Ohio State at 62. So they had 8 picks on day 3, like the Baltimore Ravens did. They started With the second pick of day three, Jude Bowery tackled Boston College at 102. Then they went to Skylar Bell, wide receiver UConn at 125. And the very next pick, my guy, Caleb Elams-Orr, linebacker TCU at 126. 167 was Jalen Kilgore, corner, safety from South Carolina. 181 was Zane Durant, defensive tackle, Penn State. At 220 was Toriano Pride Jr., cornerback from Missouri. 239, Tommy Doman, punter from Florida. And finally at 241, Ahmad Reed Adams, interior offensive lineman from Texas A&M. A lot of bat swings there, but I tell you what, that early day three looks really strong to me.
Jude Bowery was a massive reach. He's terrible. So you can take that one out of the equation. But then after that, you've got a pretty good run. Skylar Bell is an awesome pick for them. I think I said on stream when that could be low-key an offensive rookie of the year candidate with Josh Allen throwing him the ball there because he's going to surprise a lot of people. And Buffalo have improved that receiver core so that he's not going to draw as much attention to himself. He's going to one of those who's just going to feast underneath. And I love that for him. Elam's or yeah, he's perfect for what they need. I mean, I remember doing the mock draft simulator challenge me and Ryan did. I had him going to New England for the exact reason that New England and Buffalo need trench players to go against one another because they're both very physical teams who try to dominate one another. And I thought, well, the Patriots are going to need Elam's to deal with what Buffalo do, but I guess the exact argument works the other way around. They need Elam's to help counteract the physicality that New England bring to the field, and he's just one of these downhill thumpers who's gonna make life a nightmare, and every time he hits you, you feel it. So I can completely understand that from their point of view, and I know it did destroy you a little bit, but I think that's a great pick from them. Jalen Kilgore is value as hell in round five, like at the end of round five as well, pretty much. It's tremendous value for him. Um, I think he's going to provide good depth safety ability to begin with, and then he's every chance of becoming a starter in the near future. So I love that pick as well. Zane Durant, feel justified that he went as low as he did, but it is a good pick because he does have upside. There was a reason there was a lot of chatter behind him before the start of the year that he was certainly a top 100 pick, maybe quite a high top 100s pick, but he's never quite been able to unlock it in Penn State. If they can sort of just sit and develop him in peace and start getting the best out of him, that could represent some good value because he could be a big part of their rotation going forward. So, I do like it in terms of value, even if I'm not too high on the player. Toriano Pride is great value in the seventh, as well as a depth corner to develop, even all the way down to Armaj Reed Adams. I don't mind taking a punt on him at that point. I think overall, moving the Bowery pick out the equation, they did really well on day three. One of the better day threes for sure from Buffalo.
Yeah, I said about Baltimore in terms of losing only 370 picks of value when they had 11 picks was good going because often there's just one which throws it out. You then highlighted the punter. Well, Buffalo had 10 picks. They also took a punter and they only lost 141 places of value. So that's really, really good going. Moving on to Carolina, they only had 7 picks, but they made every pick count. First 2 days were Monroe Freeland, tackle Georgia at 19, Lee Hunt, defensive tackle Texas Tech 49, and Chris Brazzell the second, wide receiver Tennessee 83. Day 3 they had 4 picks. Will Lee the third, corner Texas A&M at 129, Sam Hecht, interior offensive lineman Kansas State 144, Saki Wheatley, safety Penn State 151, and Jackson Kuwatch, linebacker Miami of Ohio at 227. Overall losing only 35 places of value, but completely ruined by Jackson Kuwatch, who lost 224 on his own. Every other pick was below where they were on consensus, which is really, really strong. And I know that you especially loved almost pretty much everything that Carolina did this draft.
Yeah, I absolutely adore this draft. Like the first 2 picks, you have made significant upgrades to your trenches. Lee Hunter's he's the crown jewel of this. I adore Lee Hunter and what he's going to be. And I'm glad he's not in the NFC North, and we're not going to have to see him as much, but you go for your trenches, you reinforce those with two fantastic players. You get a wild card weapon in Chris Brazzell, who doesn't need to contribute right away, so you can work through his issues before unleashing him on the field. And then day three, you've just found some great value. Willie may not have been my favorite guy for them at corner in the fourth, but he was in that part of the draft, so you know, they've seen something with him, so that is absolutely fine. Getting Sam Hecht in the fifth is absolutely crazy value. That's going to be a second great addition to that offensive line, whether they want to play him at center or move him to guard. But at worst, right off the bat, he's going to be important depth for them. I've seen the way that he plays. He's nasty. Like he's one of these nasty Big 12 offensive linemen that love to hurt you and put you on your ass. And I think Carolina for years they've now been stockpiling that sort of player. They had a soft undercore, now they're a lot tougher. It's one of the best value picks of day three for me. Sam Hecht is there. Zakee Wheatley is as well. He's never been my favorite safety in this process, but again, coming from a team that knows how to install its fundamentals into the players. I think with Wheatley, it's just trying to bring it all together into one big package. But as a round five one, again, you're under no pressure to play him right away, and you can, sit and develop him, which is absolutely great. Jackson Kuwatch, I don't know much about, so I will leave that one to others to pick over. But I think overall, I absolutely love what Carolina have done, and they're going to be right after that NFC South title again this year, rightly so. Yeah, just great work from them overall.
Many thanks to Carlton Woods, i.e. Cool Down Rat, who has tipped $27. Says, hope this helps a bit, especially if Matt uses commercial AI on future ROTL Big Board. Thanks, Carlton. Appreciate your support very, very much. If you would like to tip as well, anybody, then there is a link in the description on YouTube. It's the Streamlabs link under tip page. You can also super chat on YouTube or subscribe on Twitch. Some great ways to support the show. Thanks again to Carlton for your support and for watching and commenting all the way through all the draft shows we did. You and lots of others, you know who you are in the chat. Thank you very much for being so active all the way through this. Let's move on to Chicago because we must do, and he's not here, but we have to mention his name one more time. Sorry, Paul. Days 1 and 2, they had 4 picks, only 3 picks on day 3. Dylan Tieneman, 25, safety, Oregon. Logan Jones, center, Iowa, 57. Sam Roush, tight end, Stanford at 69. And Xavier Thomas, wide receiver, LSU, 89. Day 3, started at 124, Malik Muhammad, corner, Texas. A 166, Keyshawn Elliott, linebacker, Arizona State. And then finished off with a trade up for Jordan Vanderberg, defensive tackle, Georgia Tech, at 213. What do you think?
I think day three they had a much better day. That round three is one of the worst, might be the worst in the draft this year, unless some team didn't have picks in there, Roush and Thomas. But day three's been really good. Malik Muhammad, I really like. I think he's been entirely underrated in this draft process. I don't know why, but in terms of a physical outside boundary corner, he's going to be really good at the next level. And I think he probably should have gone a little bit higher than this. So I think that was a very smart pick from them. Kudos with Keyshawn Elliott as well. He went obviously not long after we took Abney, I believe, if I'm remembering rightly.
Yeah.
But I've heard enough about Keyshawn Elliott from Rye over the years. Just one of these hard hitting Arizona State defenders. They're taught to take the heads off people. I've seen them play enough when they played against Iowa State. I do like their spunk that they bring to it, and I think that's again good value for him. I think he slid a little bit, so they did well there. And then Vandenberg, I really like Jordan Vandenberg. It's more of a pass rushing. Well, I've always seen him as more of a pass rushing DT. He's a very traitsy guy who could be very dangerous if you unlock, his full potential in a round 6, like at the end of round 6 as well. It is for me again one of the better value picks on day 3. At defensive tackle for them. I think he will make an impact on that roster. So I think they got some cracking value overall. I don't know what it's like against consensus, but I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, I can't really critique any of those moves from
Mm.
them. I think they're pretty good.
I didn't mention Carolina's as well. Carolina lost 35 picks of value, so that's the best one so far. Chicago lost 291, but that's only because Xavier Thomas lost almost 200 by himself. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Moving on to Cincinnati, they had 7 picks overall. Days 1 and 2 were Cassius Howell at 41, edge Texas A&M, and Takario Davis, corner Washington at 72. They started off day 3 with 128, Connor Lew, center Auburn. They then at 140 went for Colby Young, wide receiver Georgia. 189 was Brian Parker, the second interior offensive lineman from Duke. 221, Jack Endries, tight end, Texas. And 226, Landon Robinson, defensive tackle from Navy. I don't understand why you would go Lou and Brian Parker, but I love Landon Robinson. So, swings and roundabouts from me on this one. But what do you make of Cincinnati's draft class?
I mean, that Landon Robinson thing was just adorable. Like, that was just such a perfect, little ending to the draft near the end of it. Just to see him get drafted was just amazing. And, I'd like to think the pick was made with him having a serious chance of making that roster. You look at the depth chart, and certainly he's got the ability to get in there. So I 100% back behind that. Early on, Connor Lew is fantastic value week. Near the end of the fourth round, I know he's injured, but he's a top 50 player without that ACL injury. So unless the medicals have shown a little bit more of a grim analysis on him, I don't know why, but if Connor Lew gets fit and healthy this year, he's their starting center. So value-wise, it's tremendous. Brian Parker, I would assume they're gonna move him back out to tackle. Or take 2 shots at center. Who knows? But Brian Parker's center is not his natural position per se. So I know he is classified as one, but I think the plan for the Bengals would be to move him out and then have him as like a versatile backup for that interior offensive line. You can't have too much good backups in your team. So I don't mind them doing that. Colby Young was drafted way too high for me. Just none of the Georgia receivers for me this year were that special. And there's just, okay, it's a fourth round, you take a swing. But I think that was too high. Jack Endries, I thought should have gone a lot earlier. In the hierarchy of tight ends this year, the vast amount that have gone before him, this actually represents, for me, insane value because a lot worse tight ends went earlier in this draft, and he probably should have been one of those ones who maybe went as many as 100 picks higher, given the guys that had gone round him. So I think the value there with him is tremendous. And then, yeah, as I say, Landon's he's gonna give everything to that team. He is an absolute athletic freak who will literally go out there and die for the cause. So I think overall they've had a pretty good day 3, the Bengals have.
So Colby Young lost them 173 picks of value and Takario Davis lost 24. And yet they gained overall in their class 124 picks of value, one of the few teams to gain value in this draft. So fair play to the Cincinnati Bengals. They did well versus consensus. All right, Cleveland Browns next up, and they picked a lot, including a quarterback. But they had to do that, didn't they? Didn't they? Um, days 1 and 2 started off with Spencer Fano at 9, tackle Utah. Casey Concepcion, wide receiver, Texas A&M at 24. At 39, another wide receiver, Denzel Boston from Washington. 58, Emmanuel McNeil, Warren, safety, Toledo. And at 86, Austin Barber, tackle, Florida. Day 3, they also had 5 picks. At 146, Parker Brailsford, center, Alabama. 149, Justin Jefferson, linebacker, Alabama. At 170, Joe Royer, tight end, Cincinnati. At 182, Taylor Green, quarterback, Arkansas. And at 248, Carson Ryan, tight end, BYU. And I think this is a tale of 2 days because you know what? Wipe out everything that happened on day 3. Days 1 and 2 is still a home run.
Oh yeah, obviously they slayed it. I'm still not up with giving up like 4 picks to get Austin Barber that was an expensive trade for them, but it is what it is. Day three overall was pretty decent. Parker Brailsford is, again, it really good value in the fifth round. Like you're gonna sit and develop him as your potential future center. I mean, what you got Elton Jenkins there right now, so he's going to get hurt at some point during the season. Probably the health is not the best. I think Parker Brailsford could come in and certainly provide relief for him. So I like that security blanket they've got at center now. Um, Justin Jefferson, I'm with Brett. Brett didn't understand the pick. I don't understand the pick. I think it was way too early for him. I'm just given all the linebackers that were on the board as well at this point. I wasn't entirely sold on it, so I didn't think they did so well there. Obviously, you double dip at tight end. Joe Royer is obviously an in-state prospect. They will have seen plenty of him. He's just up the road from them. So, this tight end class, again, a lot of them are gone by then. So, but all I know is they will have scouted him very heavily with him being in-state. They will have seen a lot of him. So, fair enough. Carson Ryan, I think, is tremendous value. Like, basically right at the end of the draft, period. I think he's been really underrated in his time at BYU. Obviously, you've got Harold Fanning there right now, but you got these two fighting it out. There's a chance that he could make the roster. I guess Royer and Ryan both might make it, depending on who they're up against. But I think he's an incredibly good value pick. He should make that roster as well. And then as for Taylor Green, I know I ribbed Brett about it, but Taylor Green has such upside. And he's definitely not going to need to start there right away. But I think in terms of the athletic build and that he brings, you can create packages for him if you want to bring him into certain games. And if you want to try play the whole bring him in as a tight end type thing for a little bit, that's fine. I know they say they'll play him as QB, but I actually really like it because I think slowly but surely Taylor Green will beat out other guys on that roster and work his way up that depth chart, providing they fix his accuracy issues. It's the only problem Taylor Green's got is his accuracy issues. If he had more accurate arm and he was more accurate over the short to intermediate throws, he would win the starting job in Cleveland. So I think overall, apart from Justin Jefferson, I'm pretty much on board with all the picks they made.
At tight end, their depth chart at the moment is Fannin, and then Blake Whiteheart, Jack Stoll, Brendan Bates, Sal Canella, Caden Prescorn, and then Joe Royer and Carson Ryan. So I do think that they've both got a good shot to make that roster, really. Overall, the class lost 152 picks of value, considering how many times they picked. I think that's a pretty good haul, especially since Justin Jefferson lost 174 on his own. Take that out. They're making value. Right, let's move on to Dallas, starting off on days 1 and 2 with Caleb Downs at 11, safety Ohio State, and at 23, Malachi Lawrence, edge UCF, and the double dipping at edge. At 92, Jay Sean Barham from Michigan. Day 3, they had 4 picks. 112 was Drew Shelton, tackle Penn State. 114 Devin Moore, corner Florida. 137 LT Overton, edge Alabama. That's the third edge of this class. And at 218 Anthony Smith, wide receiver, ECU. And what do you make of the Dallas draft?
I'm not that sold on it. I just, I thought the first couple of days were really good, but then, you get into day 3 and I just don't see it with some of these players that they've gone after. So in terms of Drew Shelton, way overdrafted. I just don't think he was that good personally, especially not to be a pick at the start of the 4th round, pretty much. So I think that was just a massively wild swing at that point. They probably could have got him later. Devin Moore was a much better pick. I do like Devin Moore at corner. I think he's probably the opposite of someone who maybe could have gone a little bit higher. But I think overall he's a good addition to their corner depth room for now. LT Overton, I've never been a big fan of, but you're getting him sort of right at the beginning of the 5th round. So value-wise, there is potential for him to really outperform a 5th round, basically a 5th round pick there. So, but I've just never been sold on him as a player. Certainly not as a top 100 prospect, as some people thought he might be. And then Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith has been really good these last 2 years for ECU. Obviously, he's a former NC State guy. I thought I could remember I was trying to rack my brains from where I remembered he'd been a depth piece for us for years and not really done much, but he's exploded in that Pirates offense these last couple of years. So there is something potentially to like about his game there. He's your traditional wideout, 6'3", 190, so like a big outside presence for them. And I know they do like their physically contested catch guys in there. I don't know what the depth chart's like for him at receiver there, but certainly there is a way on to that roster. But yeah, overall, like the trench guys, I just wasn't enamored with, but the others, it was they were not too bad. So yeah, and I'll be back in about 30 seconds. Just give me a moment.
That's fine. Dallas, in the end, lost 111 picks of value in their draft, but Anthony Smith lost 133, so take that out. And again, they are making value. I love Malachi Lawrence. I think that's going to be a really good pick for them. And Caleb Downs, obviously, is a home run hit. Considering those two picks, I think overall it's a good draft. If you have a look at the fact that they play a base 3-4, I think it's one of those few places where LT Overton actually makes a bit of sense at the moment. They're going to have Otito Ogbonia in front of him. I think that LT Overton can rotate and be a bigger piece of that than he might be at other places. And then Lawrence coming in to kind of back up perhaps the Rashawn Gary or Donovan Izaraku. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you've got James Houston in that room too. I mean, you might be pushing down some of the other guys in depth chart, but maybe that's no bad thing. Sam Williams, Marius Louis-Fowler in there, and your edge was regarded as one of their biggest needs. So they, took as many swings as they possibly could in that regard, and I think that is a very good idea. For Downs, they needed a playmaker in that position. At safety, they've got Malik Hooker and Jalen Thompson, who are fairly highly paid. But at nickel, they have very little. So at nickel, if they put Caleb Downs there when they're in their sub package, I think that makes a lot of sense. When they go into, let's say, sub package, he could be nickel, or you could play three safeties in dime, and he's going to just fit like a glove there and be maybe the smartest guy on the field. I'm going to move on and talk about the Denver Broncos draft. They only had one pick in the first 2 days. And at 66, they took Tyler Onyedim, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M. And then into day 3, they had 6 picks, starting off at 108 with Jonah Coleman, running back, Washington. 111 was Cage Casey, the tackle from Boise State. 152, Ants' own NC State player, Justin Jolie, the tight end. And then 3 very late on. 246, Miles Scott, safety, Illinois. 256, Dallin Bentley, tight end, Utah. And then Mr. Irrelevant was Red Murdoch, linebacker, Buffalo at 257. Overall, the Denver Broncos lost 113 picks of value, but Tyler Onyedim was 143 over, and Miles Scott was 205 over. So they found significant value elsewhere. And they didn't have many picks early, the Denver Broncos. Only Tyler Onyedim in days 1 and 2 at 66. Day 3 was a mixed bag, but with Justin Jolie and Dallin Bentley at tight end being, 2 very good players considering they were drafted. And Red Murdoch, a lot of people were high on him. This is an interesting draft for the Broncos. Didn't have a lot to work with.
I thought they had a tremendous day 3 overall. Cage Casey this time last year was getting first round projections such as his talent level. He didn't quite take it forward this year, but there's a reason he had first round projections last year. He's got all the traits that he needs. He's got the athletic ability he needs to be a success at the NFL level. So, taking him in round 4 as a guy who's going to contribute in the future, I think that could pay off big time for them in the long run. So I actually do kind of like that for them in the 4th. And obviously, they take my guy, Justin Jolie. He's going to be fantastic in Denver. He's going to be a favorite target for Bo Nix. I think he's going to have a great season. I think he potentially have a great rookie season as well. I absolutely love the fit there for them, which is tremendous. And then you get to round 3 to get round 7, sorry, to get Dallin Bentley in round 7 is just straight up robbery. Between him and Jolie, they've just made one of the better tight end rooms, rookie tight end rooms in the league now. I think those two are both going to be incredible there, providing they're both able to make the roster. But I think that they will. Red Murdoch, with these Buffalo guys, these Buffalo guys are tenacious. They tackle until the sun goes down, and you figure him alone on his special teams work will make up that roster as well. And so will potentially Miles Scott. So I think they had a really good day three overall, and they've got some very high impact players for the future, but some who could also impact them now. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of their top 2 days. They're a bit poor. But hey ho, it is what it is. Jonah Coleman as well, I think I think he'll be really good for them. Um, so yeah, I actually quite really like that day three.
It's interesting because they already had three tight ends in that room who I think probably would have thought they had a good shot to make the roster. Adam Troutman, Evan Ingram, and then Nate Adkins is not the worst tight end three in the world. So to draft two guys you'd expect to make the roster is going to be a very competitive room in Denver, especially considering how Sean Payton uses tight ends and how much Bo Nix uses tight ends. It's an important position in that team.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to leave Detroit until last because we can briefly talk about that group and about the UDFAs right at the end. So moving on to Green Bay, they only had 6 picks overall. Days 1 and 2 was Brandon Cisse at 52, corner, South Carolina, and Chris McClellan, defensive tackle, Missouri at 77. Day 3 started at 120 with Danny Dennis Sutton, edge, Penn State. 153, Yeager Burton, center, Kentucky. 201, Domani Jackson, corner, Alabama. And they finished off with a kicker, Trey Smack, 216, from Florida. And this is a very important class for the Green Bay Packers. They've lost a fair amount of their team because, well, they were up against it with the cap. And then they traded for an injured edge rusher. So they had to get some high-impact players. And frankly, I don't think they've done that.
I mean, it's like with a lot of day three, it's what could be. First of all, the decision to get a kicker was the absolute right thing. Trey Smack is one hell of a kicker, so I think that was the right decision from them because kickers have cost them a lot of games. So value-wise at 6, trying to fix that there's nothing wrong with that. Before that, Danny Dennis Sutton, I've never liked Danny Dennis Sutton as a prospect, but I can see why they like him. He completely fits the prototypical mold of what they look for in a pass rusher. And at round 4 value, he was another one who had maybe a lot of hype as going up quite a bit higher than that, and it was towards the end of round 4 as well. So, as a depth edge piece potentially who could become a lot for the future, it's a decent pick there. And then I do worry about what they can do with Jaeger Burton. A lot of Lions fans loved Jaeger Burton. I know Riz loved Jaeger Burton. There was a ton of hype behind him. And quite frankly, the Packers have been able to develop O-linemen really well over recent years. And with the amount of potential that he has, I can see him becoming a very important focal point on that Green Bay offensive line. I think that's exactly the type of pick day 3 was invented for. Someone who's got all the potential in the world, who is going to land in the right system and is probably going to way outperform their draft pick. So I think for them, that was a really good pick there. Domani Jackson, mate, I've never been that big on him. I don't know if he makes their roster or not. They're going to keep taking swings at corners, obviously, with the departures they've had, but I'm not too fussed about him. I was never really that big on him in the process.
Overall, compared to consensus, they lost 177 picks of value, which is pretty good. 203 of that was Trey Smack. That's a kicker, so you can't really put much stock in that. The rest of it, therefore, they gained a little bit of value, which, is slightly worrying. I just have a look at that, and I don't think there are any difference makers. I feel like, at best, you just have more depth. Cisse is more depth, might be a starting player. If he can displace Keyshawn Nixon, and I think maybe he can. Nixon has come on. I used to be very down on Nixon as a guy, but Cisse, maybe he can come in and do stuff. But in Danny Dennis Sutton, I see someone who, you say it fits the mold, and the mold is lacks pass rush chops, is just athletic. And that's exactly what they had in Lucas Van Ness, and look how that turned out. So colour me entirely uninterested in the rest of the class. Moving on to Houston. Days 1 and 2, there were 3 picks. Kaylan Rutledge, guard, Georgia Tech, 26. Caden McDonald, defensive tackle, Ohio State at 36, and Marlon Klein, tight end, Michigan at 59. Day 3 had 5 picks at 106, Fabechi Nwewu, interior offensive lineman, Oklahoma. 123, Wade Woodaz, linebacker, Clemson. A 141, Kamari Ramsey, safety, USC. 204, Lewis Bond, wide receiver, Boston College. And 243, Aiden Fisher, linebacker, Indiana. And what an up and down draft this is. Some absolutely home run picks and some pretty terrible reaches.
For Houston, take away Marlon Klein, and this is probably one of the best drafts that there is in this entire class. Which I absolutely, this day 3 might be the best day 3 of any team possible. Fabechi Nwewu was one of my favorite players. I've watched him since he was a true freshman at North Texas. I've watched him develop. He is one of the most destructive guards that there is in college football. He's also shown an ability to play center as well. He did towards the end of his Oklahoma career. He had no problem with the adjustment to the SEC after playing down in the group of 4. I adore him. It's an absolute smack bang, thank you very much pick from them. They are going to love him, and I think he's going to blossom into a long-term part of that offensive line for them. Wade Woodaz has been the captain on that Clemson defense for years now. I think in round 4, he represents really good value because you are getting a potential future leader on that defense if you are able to develop him properly. But he's so good against the run. This Texans defense is already amazing against the run. They've added Caden McDonald to it. You put Wade Woodaz in there. Again, tremendous value for me overall, and I think he's going to do really well. Kamari Ramsey, about as versatile a guy as you will find. He can play all over the defensive backfield. So in round 5, you found yourself someone he can play slot, nickel, outside. USC have asked him to do pretty much everything. The productivity isn't there for what you'd like, but that's generally the case for these guys who get moved around every position. It's hard to stay and get in a rhythm and, get the interceptions and bits like that. But as a depth piece for their entire secondary, it's going to be very good value there. Lewis Bond is one of the picks of day 3. Lewis Bond is so underrated. He has been a fantastic receiver for Boston College this last few years in very tough, trying times for them. There were a lot of receivers who went before him who can't touch him in terms of how talented he is. In round 6, he will make that roster. He will contribute to them this year. He can play inside, outside. The route running is tremendous. His hands are good. He's physical. He loves to get in and run block as well. Great pick from them. And then Aiden Fisher, just to finish it all off. I love Aiden Fisher too. I've watched him since he was at James Madison. I've watched him go to that Indiana team, blossom into the leader of that defense and help take them to a national championship. Yes, he might be a standard inside linebacker type who's not got any flashy bits to him, but you want a guy who's going to kill himself on special teams and is going to be a very good depth linebacker for the next 7, 8, 9 years. Like, he's going to be the guy that does that. So, yeah, for me, if you take Marlon Klein out this draft, it's nigh on perfect. I'd love it if that was the way Detroit had gone. So, kudos to Caserio. For me, he's had one hell of a draft overall.
They lost 385 picks of value in their draft. Wade Woodaz was responsible for 271 of that. Marlon Klein 109 and Nwewu 117, but we know that he's undervalued as it goes. Let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts, which may be the best draft of all. Days 1 and 2, just 2 picks. CJ Allen at 53, linebacker, Georgia, and AJ Halsey, safety, LSU at 78. Day 3 was started at 113 with Jalen Farmer, interior offensive lineman from Kentucky. 135, Brace Botcher, linebacker, Oregon. 156, George Gums Jr., edge, Florida. 214, Caden Curry, edge, Ohio State. Running back, Seth McGowan, Kentucky at 237. And 254, Dion Burks, wide receiver, Oklahoma. And so many of your guys in this draft. And then to finish it off with Dion Burks, I mean, what a draft.
Yeah, Yeah, this is another one that's right up there. I mean, if they'd not already killed it with CJ Allen and AJ Halsey, to then be able to go out and get the haul that you do on day three, Jalen Farmer's going to be just fine up there. I think maybe out of all of them, it's the one I like the least, but I still do I do pretty like it. So, it shows how good the rest of them are. Betcher will be great there. I think given time, like he fits the Colts to a glove for me and what he's able to do. So. I do like that. And then your two edges, like Gums is hella underrated. He's just been that guy at Florida who's just been consistent, he's not the flashy guy because they've had all like the five-star guys on the other side from him who've kind of taken away all the attention, and then obviously Caleb Banks in there as well. He's kind of like the left out guy. He's the guy who works incredibly hard but doesn't have that aura that the guys around him do. But for me, he's going to be a very good rotational edge in this league, and it's great value halfway through the fifth to get him. Same with Caden Curry. He's got, he's only got 1 year of production because he's been buried on Ohio State's depth chart for so long, but he took advantage of that this year, and I think maybe had he had another year or two in the starting lineup there, he'd go a lot higher than he did here. So I think again, it's really good value for him towards right at the back end around six to get Caden Curry there. I think he'll surprise a lot of people. Then Seth. I love the fit for Seth. He is a physical downhill between the tackles runner who's just, and his story, I love like the road to redemption from really bad early days. For me, this is, if he was going to go anywhere, the Colts is one of the best fits for him. I think it's the strongest, it'll be strong enough locker room there. I think he will be the exact type of guy like I would think that he could get up to running back two there pretty quickly. I think he'll surprise a lot of people. And then, like you say, Dion Burks right at the end. That's just insane value. Dion Burks should have gone a lot earlier. I've never been the keenest on him as a wide receiver, but to get him right at the end around seven is like he's got way more talent than that. So yeah, the Colts have really had a good one here, and providing if they can develop this day three class right, every single guy there has the potential to be a starter, and that's not often that you can say that out of a day three draft.
They gained 234 picks of value. It is versus consensus the best draft of any team. So your feeling on it being a good draft is borne out by the comparison to consensus rankings, and yet you don't often align with the consensus rankings. So the fact that you're on board with, both of you are on board with this is quite interesting, I think. Move on to Jacksonville. An interesting draft for Jacksonville, shall we say. 10 picks. 4 on day 1 and 2, 6 on day 3. The ones we've already talked about. 56, Nate Burkircher, tight end, Texas A&M. And back to A&M. 4, 81, Albert Regis, defensive tackle. 88, Emmanuel Pregnon, guard, Oregon. And then finishing off the last pick of round 3 was Jalen Husky, safety, Maryland at 100. Day 3 started at 119 with Wesley Williams, edge, Duke. 164 Tanner Koziol, tight end, Houston. 191 Josh Cameron, wide receiver, Baylor. And sticking at wide receiver at 203 CJ Williams from Stanford. 233 was Zach Durfee, edge, Washington. He was Project X, right?
Yeah, Prospect X.
Prospect X, that's what I meant. And then Parker Hughes, linebacker, Middle Tennessee at 240. We saw a funny tweet from Arif Hassan about this draft class, or about 2 of the players in it. More on that later. And just about the class itself, a mixed bag, perhaps, is the kindest way to put this one.
Yeah. Let's be nice to them. Emmanuel Pregnon, where they got him, was one of the best value picks in the draft period. I don't know how he fell that far, but like he's going to be a stud starter day 1 for them, and that is amazing. Tanner Koziel as well. Fantastic pick towards the end of the 5th round. He should not really have got that far down. I think Tanner Koziel's going to surprise a lot of people. So yeah, that was tremendous. And then, yeah, I love Nate Burkircher. I think his receiving ability has been limited by Texas A&M. They've wanted him to be a blocker over the years there. I don't think they've taken full advantage of him. I think he could be a very surprising prospect who goes on to do a lot better than most people think he will. as high as he went, I must say I was like, yeah, I could get behind that, but I could understand why consensus wouldn't. In terms of an overreach, that is a massive overreach. If you're telling me that he goes where Tanakoziel goes, like I think it's a tremendous value pick at that point. But yeah, second round is quite big. Outside of that, Albert Regis, I don't think is good. Jalen Husky, I know, kind of guys loved him and stuff like that, but he's way overdrafted at that point. I just don't think he's that good. Wesley Williams has been a bit hit and miss. He had a good off season. He had a good Shrine Bowl and played really well there. I was impressed with him, but he's not really backed it up in school. And then Josh Cameron, CJ Williams, Zach Durfee, Parker Hughes. I mean, what more can you say? That's just feels like they were picking names out of a hat at the time. Like to take CJ Williams out of Stanford when like Dion Burks is still there at this point, when you have Daniel Sobkovitz who was still there, who is like a highly productive guy out of the FCS who's got all the talent in the world, and you are taking an absolute nobody from Stanford who doesn't really have much to him. It's just, oh, I don't know what you're thinking. And then, as you'll talk about in a minute, how far down the prospect board you have to go to find the rest of them. Don't get me wrong, Durfree's a nice story, and I'm glad Durfree got drafted as Project X. He has had injury problems his entire career, and for him to still be going is just such an act of defiance, and it's a great story. So I am quite happy that he was drafted. Even though it was as much over consensus as they say. And then, yeah, I had no idea who Parker Hughes was. It's not often I see names in a draft that I don't know. But this, yeah, the Jags got me on this one. I think overall it's very poor, and it ranks up with that Patriots draft a few years ago in terms of values lost, and I'm pretty sure it blows it out the water.
It does. So the tweet from Arif Hassan. So when they drafted Stanford wide receiver CJ Williams, someone tweeted saying, oh no, Arif said that person was number 678 on the consensus board, whatever consensus board that was. Someone replied saying, look at the bright side, at least they didn't reach a 679. And then Parker Hughes of Middle Tennessee was 679. So unfortunately, they did also reach for that guy. It was a brutal tweet from Arif Hassan. Love that guy. In terms of picks lost in value, Ant is right. They lost 1,154 picks. No other team lost more than 744. They were 410 picks worse than the next worst team. That's impressively bad. Like, know your guys, I guess, know your depth, but and
There's knowing you get this repping the small school guys, and then there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, and when your small school guys come from like Washington and Duke, that's not that small. Even Stanford is not exactly off the radar, and Middle Tennessee have some of my like. Every now and again, you'll just hear a good player from that program. It's not like they're nobodies. So yeah. Moving on to Kansas City, this is a very fun draft for me. I think at 6. Mansell Delane, corner, LSU. 29, Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson. 40, R. Mason Thomas, edge, Oklahoma. And then on day 3, at 109, Jaden Kennedy, corner, Oregon. 161, Emmett Johnson, running back, Nebraska. At 176, Cyrus Allen, wide receiver, Cincinnati. And then the Nuss bus stopped at 249, quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. What do you think?
A really rough day 3 for the Chiefs. I never has been as big on Jaden Kennedy. I mean, maybe like in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, maybe, but I think that was a bit too high for him and his skill level. I mean, don't get me wrong, like they do really well with day 3 corners there. I think back to like the likes of Joshua Williams and that, who they made into starting caliber players. They took them on day 3 as well. In fact, probably. Maybe he might, but that might have been the exact same pick. I know Joshua Williams was a 4th round pick as well, so I'm happy to be proven wrong on that. Emmett Johnson's tremendous value in the 5th. I do really like that as their replacement for Isaiah Pacheco. I think that's tremendous value for them. They've done really well. But then Cyrus Allen, it was another. I was just like, who? I'd not really seen the name mentioned round much in terms of the receiver circles, so I would have to defer, but it doesn't seem that great to me. And then Nussmeier, I mean, what a fall from grace. Obviously, the medicals people are not happy with because I don't think there's any doubt the talent is potentially there, but for him to fall so far, to me, shows that the medicals are not very good and he might struggle.
So Kansas City gained 127 picks of value in this draft. They didn't have a lot of picks, so it was quite easy to do that. Emmett Johnson and Garrett Nussmeier obviously were regarded much more highly than they were actually drafted at. I mean, Nussmeier comes in as QB5 at the moment for them, so it feels a little gratuitous. I'd be surprised if he made the 53-man roster. I don't know if he will or not, but yeah, anyway, we shall see. Chargers are next up. They had 2 picks on days 1 and 2. 22 Akeem Mesidor, edge, Miami of Florida, and 63 Jake Slaughter, center, Florida. They then had 6 picks in day 3, starting at 105 with Brennan Thompson, wide receiver, Mississippi State, 117 Travis Burke, tackle, Memphis, 131 Genesis Smith, safety, Arizona, 145 Nick Barrett, defensive tackle, South Carolina, 202 Logan Taylor, interior offensive lineman, Boston College, and 206 Alex Harkey, tackle, Oregon. Yeah, I don't have a lot of kind words.
I do. There's 6 picks on day 3. The first 3 are really good. The second 3 are really bad. Brennan Thompson, in round 4, I like. He is an absolute speedster. I think Herbert's gonna love him, but he's not just a straight up speed guy. He has also got some finesse to his game, and he's had to work with what he's been given at Mississippi State. It's not exactly been the greatest situation QB wise for him. I think there's far more to come from him, but in terms of his athletic ability, I think he's going to flourish. He's going to be just fine. Travis Burke, obviously 6'9", absolute behemoth of a man. Going to be working with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, 2 of the more technically better tackles in this league. And Travis, at his size and height, he just needs to learn to utilize what he has at his disposal. Because again, at his height, there are vulnerabilities to him, especially against speed rushers in this league, which he's going to have to deal with. But for me, he's got 2 of the best mentors in that team to be able to bring out the best in him. So I actually really like the fit as him being the swing tackle there. And the backup who can come in, and he can be the 6th man in big packages as well. I think he would do really well in that role. So I think he's landed in the exact perfect spot for him. And then Genesis Smith is ridiculous value. Like at the end of the 4th round, Genesis Smith should have been a 2nd round pick. He is an absolute stud at safety and, also in the hunt for one of the best value picks in this draft period. I think they knocked it out the park with him. So those 3 especially, I think, are going to go on and do good things. After that, Barrett, Taylor, and Harkey. Yeah, I'd be surprised if none of them made the roster. Yeah, it's just I'm not that big on any of them. So they did well with the round 4 picks. I will say that. That is a great round 4 for them.
The Chargers lost 459 picks of value, which is a slightly below average draft, but Logan Taylor and Alex Harkey really hurt that later on. Travis Burke also taken a long way above where the consensus board was, as was, most of the picks that they had really was just slightly above consensus, which didn't help. There's upside in this draft, but the only player who's really going to make any sort of difference to that team, I think, is Mesidor. Slaughter, for me, is someone who doesn't raise the floor as a player. He might establish the floor, but I don't think he raises it. So, colour me whelmed with the Chargers. Moving on to the Rams, they only have 5 picks. And boy, did they make the most of it. 13, Ty Simpson, quarterback, Alabama. 61, Max Clare, tight end, Ohio State. 93, Keegan Trost, tackle, Missouri. That was days 1 and 2. Day 3 started at 197. CJ Daniels, wide receiver, Miami of Florida. And 232, Tim Keenan III, defensive tackle, Alabama. Actually, Anne, in some ways, only having 2 picks in day 3 and taking those 2 guys I'm not going to say it's saved their draft because there's no saving that draft, but redeeming features, maybe.
Um, I love their day three. CJ Daniels, I remember watching him since his Liberty days, hella productive. As a Flame, gets the big move to Miami, and I think he did really well at Miami. The trouble is he's just been outshone by Malachi Tony, who is, one of the best receivers in college football, and everyone's eyes are on him. And CJ Daniels kind of just got left out the spotlight a little bit. But in terms of being a bigger bodied guy who's got a nice physical presence about him, I think it's absolutely wonderful value for him. And I think he will make his way onto this Rams depth chart and he will provide for them this year. He's been a very productive receiver in college and he's worked his way up, as I say, from the group of five up to the power four. Did really well, so I like that. And then Tim Keenan. I've never been the biggest on Tim Keenan, but when you're getting him in round seven, I think he's much better than that. And again, the Rams' ability to develop defensive linemen over the last few years has been second to none. So it would not surprise me if Tim Keenan was able to become a stable part of that rotation, which for a round seven pick would be really good value. I hate their days one and two. I think they're one of the worst days one and two out there, but they redeemed themselves in the later rounds for me.
In terms of comparison to consensus, the Rams gained 6 picks of value, which hides a lot of problems, I think. Ty Simpson shouldn't be playing for at least 2 seasons, you'd hope, if you're a Rams fan. And Max Clare will probably see the field in year one, but even playing 13 personnel a lot, is he tight end 4? Maybe. He's going to be, at best, a rotational player at this stage. So, not a lot to write home about, I think, for the Rams. Vegas, on the other hand, had a lot of picks in this draft. They had 10, including 4 on day 1 and 2. And then they had the first pick of day 3. Mendoza at 1, quarterback Alabama. Traden Stukes, safety Arizona at 38. At 67, Kieron Crawford, edge Auburn. And Trey Zoon the third, 91, offensive lineman from Texas A&M. Then traded up to 101 to take Jamob McCoy, cornerback Tennessee, arrested his fall. 122 was Mike Washington Jr., running back Arkansas. Dalton Johnson, safety Arizona at 150. At 175, Hezekiah Masses, corner California. 195, Malik Benson, wide receiver Oregon. And at 229, Brandon Cleveland, defensive tackle NC State. You can quibble maybe with some of the picks that they made, but overall, that is a terrific draft class.
Yeah, it 100% is. Like they killed it on the first 2 days. Kieron Crawford was a bit too high for my liking, but outside of that, they got great value. Getting Jamob McCoy first day of day three, I don't mind that. I called it. Like it's far enough down out of the top 100 picks, which even with the injury concerns now, even if he doesn't work out, it's pick 101. No one's going to care about it in 5 years' time, are they? So, like, that is insane value if they get him right. We may not see him this year, but, in a couple of years' time, he might show everyone what they're missing. Mike Washington's a home run pick here, especially so late. I love that. Mike Washington and Ashton Gionti could be one of the best pairings in the league next year. Washington brings that. He's a bit taller, brings that more of a thumper feel to it, whilst Gionti has a little bit more of the finesse. They will make a great pairing for me. Dalton Johnson, fine. Yeah, at that point, I don't mind it too much. Hezekiah Masses, I adore. That value is tremendous. Watched Ezekiel Massa since he was a Panther. He's worked with 2 very good teams in college who are incredibly good at developing their DBs. And I think he's going to work his way up to their starting positions sooner rather than later. So I love Massa's going there. And then I've got my guy, Brandon Cleveland. I've watched him at NC State the last few years. He ain't flashy, he ain't sexy. He's just very consistent. And for me, he does have the temperament that will also get him on this team and become a depth part there. So for the most part, I really love their day three and what they did. And the draft overall for them has been pretty good as well.
In terms of the comparison to consensus, they lost 260 picks of value but across 10 picks, that's fair enough. Dalton Johnson lost in 204 by himself. All of the picks they made on days 1 and 2 were above where they were on consensus. Even Mendoza was number 3. But they took impact players. Traydon Stukes was... I saw an article saying that he was, absolutely a starter and one of only 4 surefire safety starters. So the fact you can get him and then Zune, I think is going to be a great depth piece. They really need depth at offensive line. Crawford had lots of stuff talked about him beforehand. And then McCoy, if McCoy gets stashed, then that works fantastic. And then Washington as that RB2. It's a great draft.
And then I just also want to say they made one of the best picks of undrafted free agency when they got Kansi Matsuzawa. So, they got the Hawaii kicker in. The Lou Groza winner. So, we've got a little bit of Hawaii in Vegas now. I am rooting for him as much as anybody. So, like, Kansei's going to become one of the best kickers in the league. The Japanese guy who learned to kick on YouTube and barely played any football before he went to Hawaii. We all love a Rainbow Warrior on our college pod. We will always follow the Rainbow Warriors wherever they go.
We talked about Miami and the fact that they are in a deep rebuild. Well, they picked 13 times. I think that's the biggest draft class of any team. Days 1 and 2, they had 6 picks in the top 100. 12 was Caden Proctor, tackle Alabama. 27, Chris Johnson, cornerback San Diego State. They double-dipped at Texas Tech. At 43, Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker. And at 75, Caleb Douglas, wide receiver. At 87, they had Will Kaczmarek, tight end, Ohio State. And at 94, Chris Bell, wide receiver from Louisville. On day 3, they started off at 130 with Trey Moore, edge, Texas. Kyle Louis at 138, linebacker, Pittsburgh. 158, Michael Taffy, safety, Texas. 177, Kevin Coleman Jr., wide receiver, Missouri. 180, Seydou Traore via the United Kingdom from Mississippi State. DJ Campbell, guard, Texas, 200. And 238, Max Llewellyn, edge, Iowa. And Miami needed a deep class because they have gotten rid of a lot of talent. Obviously, the dead cap hit for getting rid of Tua Tagovailoa is particularly painful. So they needed people who had upside but potentially could start now as well. And in this draft, they've taken a lot of players who could be contributors in a poor team. I think this is a fantastic draft from Miami. There are a few that I would change, but given how much they needed, and they kind of needed to spread out far and wide, this could have gone very wrong, and I think they did fairly well to kind of stay the course.
Yeah, they were playing hopscotch for a long time between good draft, bad draft, but I think overall they've firmly come out on the good draft side. I thought their day 2 was really poor for the most part. Caleb Douglas and Will Kaczmarek were terrible picks. Obviously, Jacob Rodriguez and Chris Bell made up for that. Day 3, Trey Moore, I really like. I've watched Trey Moore since his UTSA days when he was a road runner. He was a highly productive road runner. Comes over to Texas again on that star-studded defense and kind of gets lost amongst the stars. Anthony Hill Jr., Colin Simmons, all those type of guys. But he did well. The productivity was fine for the move up. Maybe not as high impact as they thought they might when they first brought him in, but I still think he's got a lot of pass rush chops to him. At UTSA, you have to be good against the run as an edge defender, and he's showed his pass rush potential as well. So I think he's got all the talent in the world, and it's good value for him. They took Kyle, my favorite player in the draft. The value is insane. He should have been a top 50 pick. Kyle Louis is going to be a revolutionary player at Miami, and I'm sad that he's not going to be a Detroit Lion. But at the same point, he's going to be an absolute star player for this Miami team for many, many years. And I'm just gutted that I won't get to see it in Honolulu blue, but it's an A plus 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 pick for him. Right after that, Michael Taff at his value halfway through round 5. That's A plus 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 as well. I love Michael Taff. He could be a starting safety for them right off the bat. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. That was just a tremendous pick. Kevin Coleman at the end of the fifth is fine. I've never really been massive on him, but I think value-wise it's really good. Seydou Traore we love, obviously, through the NFL Academy. First NFL Academy player ever to get drafted, but he's more than that. Again, he's another who suffered on such a rank team, and he's really outperformed what should be expected of him in that situation. So I think he's much better. He's better than Will Kaczmarek, who they took over 100 picks earlier. So the value is tremendous there. DJ Campbell, also great value for him. Should have gone earlier. Max Llewellyn, I said I've not been very big on him. There was, projections of him being a top 100 pick a year ago. He didn't do as well this year, but they certainly got the potential in him. So you're right. For a rebuilding team that needs a lot of holes filling, there's a lot of guys here who could be long-term contributors to this team overall. It's really good. Day three really did save a rough day two for me. So yeah, good job by the Dolphins overall. And I think a lot of these players I like, and hopefully I'm wishing for them to do well.
Looking at the comparison to consensus, Miami lost 401, but given they have the biggest class of all, that's not a surprise. I think if you have a look at their team and the fact that they can go in with starting linebackers of Rodriguez and Louis, that's just going to be fun. And the fact that they've got Jordan Brooks in there as well, that's a kind of vet player who can guide them too. So I'm super high on that. I like Llewellyn. I know you don't, but whatever. They had no wide receivers to speak of coming into this draft apart from Malik Washington. The fact that they've got three guys in there in Bell, Douglas, and Coleman, and then they brought in Tolbert and Atwell, and they've got Terrace Marshall too. Like, it's a sneaky, deep group of like wide receiver fours at the moment, and hopefully the cream will rise to the top for them. So I think they've gone in with a huge amount of needs, and they've at least given themselves a fighting chance of winning some games next year. And I think that needed to be the aim, that they just weren't going to be an 0-17 team. I can see this team winning. I don't know. I mean, the offensive line is not as bad as I thought when looking at it. You have to rely on some of the guys taking a step who haven't been that great so far. Jonas Savainia is the biggest one of those. If he can take a step, maybe Miami can be semi-competitive. 5-6 wins shouldn't be beyond them.
Seydou Traore is not a public relations pick, Grandizer. You will actually like what he does. He's, I think you will really like him when he's done. He's a really good separating tight end. You'll love him as a receiving tight end. So, and he's got a lot of growth still to go. So, he ain't a public relations guy. This NFL Academy is a bona fide thing now. Again, Peter Clark's coming out next year. He's one of the best tight ends in college football down at Temple. He's come through the same system. These guys are legitimate. So, have more faith in him, Grandizer. He will do you well.
Minnesota's next up. They had 9 picks, 5 of them in the top 100. Caleb Banks, 18, defensive tackle, Florida. Jake Golday, linebacker, Cincinnati at 51. At 18, Dominic Orange, defensive tackle, Iowa State. And at 97, Caleb Tiernan, tackle, Northwestern. And then finally, in day 2, Jacoby Thomas, safety, Miami of Florida at 98. 4 picks on day 3. 159 was Max Bredesen, fullback, Michigan. 163, Charles Demings, corner, Stephen F. Austin. 198, Damon Claiborne, running back, Wake Forest. And 235, Gavin Gerhardt, interior offensive lineman, Cincinnati. I think this class is predicated on whether you think Caleb Banks' injury is going to hold him back. If it doesn't, and they've got Orange and Banks in that room, and then Golday, Tiernan, Bredesen, Demings, Claiborne, there's a lot to like there. I'm not sure that there's some massive impact players, but they've all got something about them.
I mean, even as a Lions fan, if Caleb Banks works, this is an A+ draft class. It's a fantastic draft class for them. Caleb Banks and Big Citrus as your new defensive tackle pairing. That legitimately scares me as a Lions fan. I have watched Dominique Orange his entire career. I am a big Cyclones fan. obviously on the Spectacle. I've watched him play, and while he may not have the pass rush upside as a run blocker, he's absolutely devastating. And that's why Caleb Banks is in there next to him. Caleb Banks is the one they're going to send after the quarterback and the one that is going to do all the damage in that regard. As a pairing, as a pass rusher and a run blocker who are going to provide one of the most formidable tandems we'll come up against. I mean, for me, it's scary. It really is. And I don't want Caleb Banks to fail because of injury, because I want every single draft prospect to have a healthy career and to do the best they can. I'd rather he fail because he's not a good football player. The only trouble is if Caleb Banks is healthy, I think he's going to be a hell of a football player. You add Jake Golday into that. Jake Golday has designed as a pass rushing threat. Like, I dread to think what Flores will do with him because back in his Central Arkansas days, they love to use him as an edge and use packages for him where he can blitz. He's got the size, he's got the speed to be able to do it. He can play that inside linebacker role as well. It's kind of like when they took Pace and what they did with Pace. They made him a really formidable weapon through the middle. I don't like the fact that Brian Flores has got his hands on Jake Golday because I know what he can do. Then you've got Charles Demings, who's going to be, for me, he's going to be one of the best corners they've had in some time. It might take a bit of time for him to adjust, but I do legitimately think he could become one of their best corners sooner rather than later. And Jacoby Thomas is really good value for them as well. So I think they've had a defensive shift and I don't like it because that could be a bloody good defense sooner rather than later. So I think they've drafted incredibly well. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I love Caleb Tiernan. You know I love Caleb Tiernan. It's one of my favorite linemen in the class. Um, I'm assuming they'll play him at left guard, obviously with their incumbent there at left tackle, but he could do both. But I just think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. So that's a good part of the offensive line done. And Devont Claiborne, I've seen enough over the years because he's destroyed NC State every time he's played against us. He's fast, he's quick, he is a game breaker potentially on his day. So. I'm interested to see what they do with the Max Bredesen pick, taking a fullback. They don't traditionally use a fullback, so I don't know what to do with him. But overall, color me very worried about the defensive additions they've made, especially that tackle pairing. That is just chef's kiss, that pairing.
Minnesota lost 370 picks of value in their draft. Obviously, they had a few picks. The biggest reach, Gavin Gerhardt, was 216 picks of value. Bredesen was lower on the consensus board because, of course, he's a fullback and they're just not going to be particularly highly regarded. But if you have a plan for that player, it should work out well. Let's see. New England are next up. They had 9 picks in the draft, 3 in the top 100. 28 was Caleb Lomu, tackle, Utah. 55, Gabe Yakas, edge, Illinois. And 95, Eli Raridan, tight end, Notre Dame. They then had 6 on day 3. At 171, Karen Prunty, cornerback, Wake Forest. 196 was Demetrius Crownover, tackle, Texas A&M. 212, Namdi Obiazor, linebacker, TCU. 234, Baron Morton, quarterback, Texas Tech. 245, Jam Miller, running back, Alabama. And 247, Quintavious Hutchins, edge, Boston College. And I love the top 2 picks. And otherwise, they found a little bit of value here and there. But otherwise, big reaches. Some of them anyway.
I couldn't put it better myself. Those 2 top picks are fire. After that, there's absolutely nothing that really makes me excited whatsoever. I think the only one, I think Demetrius Crownover was highly disrespected here. I thought he was much better than a mid-6th round pick. So I think Crownover could actually be really good value for them, especially as a depth tackle option going forward. So I think that was a really good pick. Outside of that, Raridan, Prunty, Abias, Morton, Miller, Hutchins, not a single one of those for me feels like value or is going to be that great going forward. So I'm going to be proven wrong, but for me, Patriots was one of the weaker drafts outside of their top couple of picks.
New England lost 555 places of value. I think that puts them in the bottom 5. Yeah, it's just a very New England draft, isn't it? They like who they like and they don't care what you think. New Orleans are next up. They had 8 picks, 3 in the top 100. 8 was Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. 42, Christian Miller, defensive tackle, Georgia. And staying at Georgia, 73, Oscar Delp, tight end. In day 3, had 5 picks starting at 132. Jeremiah Wright, interior offensive lineman from Auburn. 136 was my guy, Bryce Lance, wide receiver, NDSU. Lorenzo Styles Jr., safety from Ohio State, was at 172. 190 was Barry and Brown, wide receiver, LSU. And at 219, TJ Hall, corner, Iowa. And Saints needed to make a bit of a splash here. And 2 wide receivers go, and Christian Miller, impactful players. Some reaches elsewhere, but this feels like this could be a difference-making draft for their young quarterback.
3 wide receivers. 3 good wide receivers. Let's not forget Barry and Brown. Ryan adores Barry and Brown, and Ryan has adored Barry and Brown for years, and I get it. Barry and Brown is back in his Kentucky days. He was another one of those Kentucky receivers who he flourished despite the odds against him. He's a very good returner. He is a legitimate playmaker. He made the move to LSU and kind of got. He did well at LSU. It's just they had a lot of targets there to feed, and he kind of had to work his way into the rotation. But Barry and Brown is one hell of a value pick. I saw it immediately and I thought, yes, that's a very, and of course it's just down the road from New Orleans, so they will have seen him play as well. But I think Barry and Brown's he's going to be above Bryce Lance in that depth chart. I love him that much. I think he's a tremendous pick for them. Kind of same with a lot of their D3 ones. I think Lorenzo Styles was really good value where they got him. TJ Hall was tremendous value where they got him. Obviously, Bryce Lance is a good pick, and depending on what you think with him, that value is potentially really good as well. Jeremiah Wright's a bit here or there, but overall, I really like the New Orleans draft class. And like you say, they've given Shook a chance for the future with Delp as well. His receiving room is very good. It's going to give him a chance to win, but certainly a trio of receivers who are all, for me, going to offer him a lot in year 1.
The New Orleans Saints lost 352 places of value, which is about middle of the pack, but all of that came from Lorenzo Styles and Barry and Brown pretty much. Delp was also a bit of a reach, apparently, but there we go. Giants. Giants only had 7 picks. They made the most of it. 5, Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State. 10, Francis Marigoa, tackle, Miami of Florida. 37, Colton Hood, cornerback, Tennessee. 74, Malachi Fields, wide receiver, Notre Dame. That's day 1 and 2. Day 3 started at 186, Bobby Jamison Travis, defensive tackle, Auburn. 192, J.C. Davis, tackle, Illinois. And their very next pick, 193, Jack Kelly, linebacker, BYU. I'm not sure about maybe just one of those picks. For the rest, the Giants needed help. Giants needed to start making the roster in the image of their new head coach. And this feels like a good formative first draft in New York.
Jack Kelly with John Harbaugh is going to be a monster. He is way going to surpass his 6th round pick status here. I love that pick for them, especially when you think of all the stuff they've got on that defensive line. Especially now you've got Arvell Reese there as well. Like Jack Kelly is going to be he's going to be such a beneficiary of this. When you start blitzing him, when opposition offensive lines have to deal with that entire New York defensive line, I think he's going to be one of those who's sneakily going to accumulate a lot of negative plays this year. Obviously, he'll work his way into special teams. He'll get his way on that roster, but I think there's a route to him starting instantly. I love that pick. The other 2 day 3 ones, I don't really care less. I don't like either player, so it is what it is. But I love the day 1 and 2, all the way down to Malachi Fields. I think Malachi Fields is going to be great there as well. So I think overall they've done a very good job. Obviously, he's strengthened his trenches with the first 2 picks, which is what he was always going to do. And he's got 2 good playmakers outside of that and a real draft diamond at the back end of that. So, yeah, solid stuff from the Giants for me.
They lost 133 picks of value. 132 of them were Bobby Jamison Travis. Jets. Jets backed up a great, draft for New York more generally. They had 8 picks, starting with David Bailey at 2, edge Texas Tech, Kenyon Sneak at 16, tight end Oregon, 30, Omar Cooper, wide receiver Indiana, 50, D'Angelo Pons, corner Indiana. Then 4 picks on day 3, starting at 103, Darrell Jackson Jr., defensive tackle Florida State, Clay Klubnik, quarterback Clemson at 110, 188 Inez Cooper, interior offensive lineman from Miami, Florida, and 228 VJ Payne, safety, Kansas State. And Clay Klubnik might define that day 3. VJ Payne's a hell of a pull at 228, but that day 1 and 2 impact players. They needed to do something. And this feels like a good start for that it's not a new regime, but it feels like a new regime right now to me in my head.
To me, the first half of that draft is A plus. The second half is D minus. It's a real, Jekyll and Hyde thing there. I love day 1 and 2. 4 impact players are going to start day 1 is just a tremendous thing there. It falls off a cliff after they get Darrell Jackson for me. Kate Klubnik, no, I don't think there's going to be anything there. Inez Cooper and VJ Payne, value-wise, they're very good picks. I just don't know if there's upside there that's going to really they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is amazing value. Like Inez Cooper, maybe. I do feel like he should have gone maybe a fair bit higher than round 6. VJ Payne the same maybe, but I just don't know what their ceilings are. But they could certainly both outperform their draft positions. But I'm a lot more hyped about the first round of that than I'm the second. Pons going there for me is going to be great. They're going to love D'Angelo. A team that's had a secondary that has been garbage getting to watch D'Angelo Pons, and I'm hoping they'll let him play on the outside and they'll let him be the menace that he should be. But I'm looking forward to that. Bailey, Cooper, Pons, I love all 3 of them tremendously. So I wish them nothing but the best.
Jets lost 18 picks of value in this draft, and considering how many picks they made, very, very good work. Philadelphia next up, they made 8 picks as well. Day 1 and 2 had 3. Mekhi Lemon at 20 USC, Eli Stowers tight end Vanderbilt at 54, and Markel Bell tackle Miami of Florida at 68. Started a bit later on day 3, despite having 5 picks at 178. Cole Payton, quarterback, NDSU. Micah Morris, interior offensive lineman, Georgia at 207, and then 3 late picks. 244, Cole Wisnowski, safety, Texas Tech. 251, Uar Bernard, edge from the International Player Pathway Program, and 252, Keyshawn James Newby, edge, New Mexico. And I don't like their day 1 and 2. I like Eli Stowers. Lemon's fine, but for me, didn't feel like they maximised things. Day 3, on the other hand, considering they didn't get a pick until early round 6, is that? No, round 5, Cole Payton.
Round 5 comps.
Yeah, so late round 5. Considering they started very late, I quite like their day 3.
I think they did very well on the whole. Cole Payton, great pick for them to sit and develop behind Jalen Hurts. But I think he's going to provide a very good floor for their backup quarterback role. So I'm all aboard that pick, and I'm glad that was made sooner rather than later. It would have been terrible if Cole had gone much later than that. That's still too late for him, but it's great value for them. Micah Morris is rubbish, so no, I'm not really that fussed about him. Cole Wisnowski is great value. Cole Wisnowski should not have been there at all. I love him and his playmaking ability at safety there. This kind of smacks of what they did with Reed, where they got a really late pick who was just disrespected, because Cole Wisnowski has played most of his career at small school. He's not like a career Texas Tech Power 4 guy. He's a little bit smaller, so he's been disrespected for things that he shouldn't be, and I feel like he might take the Reed route here, where it might start a little slow, but then you'll see him come in, make plays, and before you know it, he'll be a part of that defensive starting front, and you'll be like, oh, I didn't even realize. Keyshawn James Newby is highly disrespected. He's had a wonderful couple of years at New Mexico. He was great at Idaho before that, as Paul mentioned, when they nearly upset Oregon in Eugene a couple of years ago. He had a tremendous game against Oregon's offensive line. So he's shown he can do it against better opposition. And that New Mexico Lobos team it's been awesome these last few years when it was used to be the laughingstock of college ball. And he's like one of the reasons why they've taken that step forward. Um, been leader on that defense. So I love it. And then obviously you are Bernard is a swing, but if anyone's going to get it right, like the Eagles' trench development is as good as any in the league, and if anyone's going to find a way to make his big hulking frame work, then it'll be them. So, for the most part, that day three for me is chock full of value, and if Bernard works, then I mean that could be a steal.
Philadelphia lost 384 picks of value. I mean, it is what it is. Uar Bernard's going to do some of that for you. Markel Bell was their biggest reach otherwise, apparently. Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has quite a few picks here. 10, including 5 in the first 2 days. 21 was Max Iheanacho, tackle Arizona State. 47, Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver Alabama. 76, Drew Aller, quarterback Penn State. 85, Dalen Everett, corner Georgia. And 96, Jennings Dunker, tackle Iowa, maybe guard. 121, first pick of day 3, Caden Wetjen, wide receiver Iowa. 169, Riley Nowowski.
Nowakowski.
Thank you, sir. Tight end Indiana. 210, Gabe Rubio, defensive tackle Notre Dame. 224, Robert Spears Jennings, safety Oklahoma. And then maybe the most heartwarming part of the draft, 230, Eli Heidenrich, running back, Navy. Running back, wide receiver, whatever you want him to be. And looking at the overall draft here, I kind of like, sneakily, quite a lot of it, even if some of it will be regarded as reaches. I still think the funniest part of it is watching Drew Aller trying not to put the hat on, but I mean, the best part of it might be the last pick for me. I mean, who knows what he could be in the league. Heidenrich could be out of the league in 2 years' time because he doesn't translate. He could be a home run.
Yeah, color me incredibly intrigued with this day three. And for once, thank you, Steelers. They didn't take a single player that I truly loved in this draft. So nice on you to take a year off. But Caden Wetjen, Riley Nowakowski, and Eli Heidenreich. I cannot begin to tell you how much potential fun as an offensive coordinator I can have with these guys. Obviously, Vetchen is your returner, but he's also a smaller slot gadget guy who you can do a lot of pretty stuff with. Riley Nowakowski, I would say I do love Riley Nowakowski. It's just his positional value kind of ever kept him off being amongst my top players here, but Riley Nowakowski does fullback for Indiana, he does tight end, he does receiver, and to be fair, he came up with a lot of clutch plays for that Hoosiers team when they really needed him. Like people talk about Surratt and Cooper, but Nowakowski was just as much a part of that, and he can play all over, literally from the backfield to receiver. And then Eli Heidenreich, your running back, fullback, tight end type as well. These are 3 incredibly gifted gadget players who you can move around and have a lot of fun with and flummox an opposition defensive coordinator. The fact they've got all 3 in one go, I don't know whether all 3 of them make the roster or not, but I just want to say you could make a billion plays for this offense with these guys in there. You could have a lot of fun, and to see how they're going to be deployed at the next level is genuinely one of my favorite things coming out of this draft, providing they all make it, because it's just one of those where I like it when things get a little bit jazzy and you work it up a little bit. But I think Nowakowski's going to be a real big hit there. They'll love him and what he brings to the table. Same with Heidenreich. He's a running back. Sorry, he is a receiver, sorry, but he's worked in the option system with Navy, so he can do the running back thing. Ultimate mismatch. And he will give you 150% every single play. That's the service way. That's how you do it. Outside of that, Robert Spears Jennings was absolutely fantastic value in the 7th round, without a shadow of a doubt. Like if they turned him into a Pro Bowl caliber player from round 7, it would not surprise me. in the slightest. The only one I don't get is Gabriel Rubio. I have no idea whatsoever. They must have obviously Notre Dame not too far up the road, just up in Indiana. So maybe they've seen something I haven't. But yeah, let me just say I am really looking forward to seeing some of these guys and what they do there.
Pittsburgh lost 547 places of value in this draft, which is on the higher side. Um, like I said, some of them are going to be regarded as reaches, but you can see the vision, I think, with them. A few more draft classes to go, starting with Seattle. They had 8 picks, 3 of them in the first 2 days. Jadarian Price at 32, running back Notre Dame. 64 is Bud Clark, safety TCU. And 99, Julian Neal, corner, Arkansas. 5 picks on day 3, starting at 148 with Bo Stevens, interior offensive lineman from Iowa. 199, Emmanuel Henderson Jr., wide receiver, Kansas. 236, Andre Fuller, corner, Toledo. 242, Devin Easton, defensive tackle from Minnesota. And 255, Michael Dansby, corner, Arizona. All I can say about this draft is some of the players might be good, but I just wouldn't have taken them there, with the exception of one.
Oh, what, Bud?
No, I would have taken Andre Fuller.
Yeah, I, it always seems to be Super Bowl winners follow it up with really naff draft classes. I don't know what it is about it, but for me, I'm not that hyped about it. Jadarian Price was way too rich for my blood. Julian Neal was way too rich as well, but day 3, you've got some decent players. Bo Stevens for me is a very good value pick. A third of the way into round 5. I think he's going to develop very nicely into an interior offensive line option for them sooner rather than later. Andre Fuller, like you mentioned, probably should have gone higher than he did, and you wouldn't bet against Toledo. You know, three years in a row they've had prospects taken in the top 60. They know what they're doing there. He could potentially do a lot better than expected. I like the Devin Easton pick as well. It's not just because I'm favouring Mile Marker and the Golden Gophers, but he's been a good nose tackle. He's like a nose one tackle for them, and he's just done a very, steady job for Minnesota over the years. He's good against the run. He's a nice, stout tackle, 6'6", 320, so he's maybe a little tall for an outright nose. You might have to try and shift him out a little bit. He's had 5 sacks over the last 2 years, so he does have a little bit of pass rush upside to him. So if the Seahawks can, just coax that out a little bit more, his size and his weight, he presents a very intriguing option. So I think Devin Easton will make something of himself there. So it was a little bit of both for me. But yeah, I think overall it could have been better for them for absolute sure.
They lost 420 picks of value, apparently, with their draft, which is, again, about middle of the pack. But they only had 8 picks. Some of the guys who did worse had a lot more picks. So, San Francisco also had 8 picks, and they started at 33 with Deshaun Stribling, wide receiver, Ole Miss, 70 Romello Height, edge, Texas Tech, and 90 Kalon Black, running back, Indiana. Day 3 had 5 picks, starting at 107. Grayson Halton, defensive tackle, Oklahoma. Offensive tackle, Washington, Carver Willis at 127. Staying at Washington at 139. Ephesian Prysock, corner. 154 was Jaden Duggar, linebacker, Louisiana. And 179, Enrique Cruz Jr., tackle, Kansas. A lot of these guys are going to be regarded as reaches. I quite like this draft. I like Kalon Black a lot. I like Romello Height. I like what Jaden Duggar could be. Grayson Halton, I know, is one of yours. They might all be reaches, but it could work.
I think their day 3 was damn good. Grayson Halton and the 49ers scares me. His pass rush chops working on that team as well with how they develop defensive linemen is scary. Grayson Halton's got a massive ceiling there, and he's way going to outperform a 4th round pick availability, providing that he stays healthy. But That for me is he fits him like a glove, and I'm scared about potentially how good he could be there. Ephesians Prysock, I really loved as well. The run on taller corners came early, so maybe guys had to reach. I don't blame them for taking him that high because, like, obviously, Takario Davis had gone a lot earlier as well. Your taller corner stockpile was starting to dwindle, so you've got to go and get your guy. But Prysock, I really like. I think he's going to do well there for them. Jaden Duggar was obviously loved by a lot on this panel as well for that safety linebacker hybridy stuff he can do. So Carver Willis, I thought was taken way too high. And then Enrique Cruz. Obviously, you've taken two swings there at tackle. They're working with Trent Williams, one of the best tackles in the league. You've got Colton McKivitz there, who they're working with as well. So, you know, they're not going to be under any hurry to start right away. You can sit and develop them. You're taking swings on day two. I don't mind too much with that. So I think overall they did pretty well. Like they've given that defense a serious boon, especially with having Romello Hyde there as well.
They lost 744 picks of value, which makes them apparently the second worst draft class out there. I don't believe it, and neither should you. Tampa Bay is next up. 7 picks for them, 3 in the top 100. 15 was Ruben Bain Jr., edge Miami of Florida. 46 Josiah Trotter, linebacker Missouri. And 84 Ted Hurst, wide receiver Georgia State. The 4 picks on day 3 started at 116. Keontae Scott, corner Miami of Florida. 155 DeMonte Capehart, defensive tackle Clemson. 160 Billy Schrouth, interior offensive lineman Notre Dame. And 185 Bauer Sharp, tight end LSU. Some good, some bad. Like it overall from me.
I think those first 4 picks are amazing. The 3 after that are just blur. Yeah, I couldn't really care. I thought they had a really bad end to this draft. Capehart, Shroud, Sharp, nah, I'm not seeing much there. But those top 4 alone, Ruben Bain, as I've said, that's nightmare fuel that he's gone to Tampa. That's just insanely good value at 15, and that's going to help them re-establish that dominant defensive identity that we've struggled with so much over the years. I don't like that in the slightest. Josiah Trotter's an absolute, hard-hitting monster now at the second level for them. So they've put some great additions back there. Ted Hurst, I love at receiver. I think, he's exactly what they need in terms of the profile they look for. And he's got a lot to prove coming from a group of 5 school early, but again, I think Tampa's the perfect system for him to go to flourish. And then Keontae Scott in the middle of the 4th round, just value-wise alone, is bordering on criminal. They've got a definite starting caliber corner near, probably maybe off the bat even if they want to in round 4 there. I think those top 4 have made them a much more dangerous team, especially that defense got a hell of a lot better. The end of the draft I don't really care about.
They lost 109 picks of value, which puts them in the top 10, I think, in terms of best drafts versus consensus. 2 more teams left before we touch on Detroit, starting with Tennessee. Tennessee had 8 picks in this draft. 4 they took Carnell Tate, wide receiver Ohio State. 31 Keldrick Folk, edge Auburn. And 60 Anthony Hill Jr., linebacker Texas. Then 5 in day 3. Started at 142 with Fernando Carmona, interior offensive line Arkansas. 165 Nicholas Singleton, running back Penn State. And 184 Jackie Marshall, defensive tackle Baylor. 194 Pat Coogan, center Indiana. And 225 Jaron Kanak, tight end Oklahoma. I really like this draft. I'm going to go out on a whim and say that I think overall I can take or leave day 3, but day 1 and 2, I like all of those players, and Tennessee need to be that ascending team. I think that they've improved.
Got to be nice here because I know Titans Rossi's watching, or at least he was a little earlier. So I want to be nice when we talk. And I'm joking. I do actually quite like this Titans class. That round 1 was tremendous for me. Carnell Tate, he's going to be a great successor. Keldrick Folk I wanted at 17. If he develops the way that I think he's going to, they've got an absolute steal there at 31. Anthony Hill Jr. also Great pick for them. Just again, another underrated because he was playing with Colin Simmons at Texas, but he's just been a very dangerous, pass rushing threat. Who's also a very good linebacker. So those were three knockout picks. In terms of day three, I really like their day three. Fernando Carmona has extensive experience at both tackle and guard. He's played at multiple levels as well. He's played at the group of five. He's then gone up to the power four, and he's adjusted to it. I figure that guard is his future, but he has tackle versatility. If they have some sort of injury crisis at tackle, you can shift him across because he's taken plenty of snaps at left tackle on the blind side. So versatile wise, that is a good pick for them. Nicholas Singleton, I adore. He's always, for me, been much better than Katron Allen as a prospect. Singleton, I know he's injured right now, but when he's back, he is a elite returner, and he has been for a long time now. So instantly, even if he doesn't start on your running back depth chart, he's going to be your returner, and he's a very good one to boot. But his style of running, I just love. It's the right amount of power and finesse merged into one. He was a high five-star recruit. A lot was made of him, and he delivered on every single one of those stars. And as a late round five pick, I get it because of the injury and running backs and the history and whatnot. I still think it's great value for them. Pat Coogan is insane value in the middle of round six. He was developed by Notre Dame. We know what Notre Dame's like for the development of their offensive linemen and just how good they are, and then moves to Indiana, finds a home at center, although he played a lot of guard at Notre Dame. And for me, he's been a tremendous center. You watch the repertoire between him and Fernando Mendoza, the snaps are good for the most part. Sometimes he can get a little bit high on the snaps, but the technical part of it is done really well, and his pass blocking is really good as well. So, like in the middle of round six, I'm befuddled as to why he was there. So, I think they found three great value picks on day three there. Jackie Marshall and Jaron Kanak, I'm a bit meh on. I don't really like either or of them, but I think overall they've added a ton of talent to that roster on all 3 days here. So, I think the Titans overall, for me, it's a really good draft.
Tennessee Titans lost 424 picks of value in their draft, but I love what they did on days 1 and 2, and I like Singleton, so I'm giving it a good grade. Washington's the last one before the Lions. Washington only had 6 picks. They didn't do too much trading. They didn't trade down from 7 as rumoured, instead staying there and taking Sonny Styles, linebacker at Ohio State. And at 71, Antonio Williams, wide receiver, Clemson. 4 picks on day 3. At 147 was Joshua Josephs, edge, Tennessee. 187 was Katron Allen, running back, Penn State. Matt Golbin, the center from Michigan State, at 209. And finishing off at 223 with Athan Kaliakmanis, quarterback, Rutgers. And this is a very interesting class for Washington.
They were doing so well. So well. Then they took Kaliakmanis. Why? Why ruin such a great draft by taking Athan? I know it's round seven, but oh boy. But yeah, it's overall a very good draft for them. Sonny Styles, as we know, one of our maybe the most talented player in this draft, just fell to them at 7. Antonio Williams, I really like. The possession receiver from Clemson. Yeah, he might just be pigeonholed into more of a slot role, but in terms of a guy who's going to be uber productive, he's so good after the catch. I think he's going to flourish there in Washington. Joshua Josephs, I've never been as sold on as I don't like the Tennessee trench players generally, but like at the beginning of round 5, I think the talent he possesses means that they're going to get good value for that pick there. Katron Allen, I do like Katron Allen, even though I've just said Singleton's better. But, Katron Allen is all-time leading rusher in Penn State history. He has his own marker to him, and he's probably the more of the thumper, get-down dirty guy, whereas Singleton has a bit more finesse. But I think, he's going to fit in to Washington very well. He'll be in that rotation. He's a good guy to have him come in as running back 2 or 3 when your initial guys have broken them down. Matt Gulbin's a great pick. I know Matt Gulbin has a lot of admirers on our pod, but in terms of getting him so late, like he's just been on a team that's, for want of a better word, been absolutely gash. But from his Wake Forest days to his Michigan State days, he's always been very consistent. And I think he could be one of those who really surprises you. Like, it might take him a couple of years, but eventually he'll get an opportunity when an injury or something happens. He'll come into your starting lineup, and before you know it, you'll not be able to get him out your starting lineup. So the value there is tremendous. And then, yeah, they took Calliot Manis. People know my history with Calliot Manis. It's been up and down, but I don't think he's going to do much at the next level, to be fair. But we see. We could be surprised.
I think they did a good job matching best player available with need. I think they needed some, edge depth, and I think Joshua Joseph can be that. I'm higher on Catron Allen than you are. They've got Rashad White as their running back one. Really? Caliac Manis, I mean, he goes into a room that already has an established 1 and 2. They're paying Marcus Mariota a good amount of money, but can Caliac Manis beat out Sam Hartman?
No.
Maybe?
No.
Maybe?
No.
All right.
No, 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 no.
Washington gained 143 picks of value, which makes it the second best draft in the league versus consensus. Finishing off with Detroit, we started off with Blake Miller at 17, right tackle Clemson, Derek Moore, edge, Michigan at 44. And then on day 3, we have 5 picks. 118 was Jimmy Rolder, linebacker, Michigan. 157, Keith Abney, the second corner, Arizona State. 168 was Kendrick Law, wide receiver, Kentucky. 205, Skylar Gilhoward, defensive tackle, Texas Tech. And going back to defensive tackle, maybe a bit of a tweener, Tyre West from Tennessee at 222. And how are you feeling about our draft class overall? Now we've had a bit of time to sleep on it.
Right, there's 2 versions of this for me. So the version of me that is the college football guy that loves his prospects and falls, in terms of me and guys I wanted and guys I wasn't as high on, and that I'm incredibly disappointed for the most part. Like, it's just, if I could have put in a draft which I didn't want, guys, then there'd be quite a few who wouldn't have made it here. But that's like the college football version of me. That's the passionate about his own players me. When I look at it overall, I mean, for the most part, it's a little bit of both. So Blake Miller, obviously for me, it wasn't my favorite tackle in the draft, but I get it. I've long consistently said for a long time, he's got the highest floor of all the tackles in this draft. I think he's by far the safest pick. And if you want just a consistently solid tackle for the next 7, 8, 9 years, I think that's what you're going to get with him. And that's exactly what we need. And he does fit the profile of what we want, kind of Decker's size, really good against the run, and the ultimate durable Iron Man, which is what you need with your offensive lineman. So, while it isn't the tackle I wanted, I'm perfectly happy with it now, looking back at it. Derek Moore, I know I didn't like it to start with. For me, again, still not the edge I would have taken here at this point. I would have taken a different one. But at the same point, I would be remiss in saying that I would be a hypocrite if I'm not at least a little happy with Derek Moore, because I wanted Keldrick Folk, a bigger body who is going to be really good against the run, who is going to be able to hold down that second defensive end the way the Lions want it, but has pass rush upside, because I'm just fed up of these guys being good against the run and then useless when it comes to rushing the passer. Derek Moore's productivity as a pass rusher came in the last year. It's something that has grown and developed in his game, and he was much better at it. Now, bear in mind, a lot of those 11 sacks came in multi-sacks games. There were a lot of times when he didn't register sacks and pressures in games, like they were kind of came in spurts, but it's there. I can live with that. I can live with his pass rush upside. Am I happy that we kind of traded up to get him and give away a pick? Not really. But at the same point, like, again, for me, it's going to be the closest I'm going to get to a compromise between edge rushers I like and edge rushers the Lions like. So as a compromise, I will take it 100%. Rolder, and I know I've got, and look, I'm going to say this to death. I just don't like the pick whatsoever. I don't think it was necessary at that point. And yes, Michigan fans have been telling me to go back to eating scones and crumpets and focus on football because I don't know what I'm talking about. I've taken a lot of hate on Twitter for this one because I wasn't particularly happy with it. Chill, folks. It's a day three linebacker. You know, if that's where we're going to get to with it, just personally for me, I don't think the value was very good for it, and I don't think we really needed a guy in his mold, especially when there were still guys like Kyle Louis on the board, who for me are a lot more versatile and bring a lot more to the plate than what Rolder does. I am happy to be proven wrong. This was his first year as a starter. He doesn't have a lot of starting experience, so potentially there's more upside with him, but I just feel like Malcolm's going to beat him out. Like that, even Riz said he's fighting with Malcolm for his spot. I don't see Rolder having enough quality to beat Malcolm off this roster. So what you do with him after that, I don't know. Again, there were a lot more players I liked in that part of the draft and a lot more different directions I thought we could go. So I'm going to hold on to my view that that was not the best pick. Abney is tremendous. As I mentioned yesterday, we need corners who are more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. We, for too long, have allowed receivers to have it easy against us on the line of scrimmage. We haven't got anyone who can get up in their grill, who can land a hit on them, who make them think like, I don't want to be here. They're like, I genuinely don't want to play against this team because every time I try and get somewhere, this guy's got his hand in my face and he's causing me problems. Keith Abney is a wonderful, violent press man coverage corner. I mean, it's just a feature of that Arizona State defense. They're all violent morons, as you can see over the years. Like they like physicality on that defense. They are not afraid to make you hurt. And I think he's exactly what we don't have. We've been called, and that's kind of why I've called out for taller corners. I want taller corners who can got a bit more oomph behind them, who can hit. I know Keith Abney is smaller, but he packs the punch that I want him to. So along that rationale, I can understand that, and I really like that pick. Kendrick Law, um, so kind of like the same with Barry and Brown. He's not really been put in a position to succeed. Kentucky's vertical passing game has been pretty much non-existent. Um, at least until Cutter Bowley came into that side this year, they've not had a lot to work with. He does a lot of his work behind the line of scrimmage. Quite simply, the Kentucky QBs haven't been good enough, so they have to get it out the hands quickly, get it out on screens, let the receivers do the work after possession, and kind of actually, Detroit doesn't necessarily have that guy. Amon Ra loves to get up the field, between the numbers, do his work there. JMO likes to get really far downfield, do his damage there. Tesla is, another one who likes to contest and catch stuff on the perimeter. We don't really have a guy behind the line of scrimmage who can do the work after the catch, like going through on the screens. Like we traditionally left that to our running backs and Jameer Gibbs and stuff like that. So color me intrigued as to Kendrick Law can give us that kind of guy because we love to throw screens. We love to do that sort of stuff. And for me, a guy who is a lot more experienced at doing that type of role, I think could provide something good to this team. So I know I wanted a big-bodied receiver at wide receiver four, but we have Tesla for contested catches. I didn't stop to think about someone like this. And the more I think about it, the more I'm willing to give it a chance. And again, he might have a lot more upside as a receiver because he's not been in a system that's allowed him to really flourish as much as you want, but I'm quite happy to give him that role as like, the third down, get him in the backfield, get him out on screens, get him into space and let him do his damage. So I think low key, it could be very good now that I've had time to think about it. Skylar Gill Howard is the treasure trove. I really wanted Grayson Holton because I wanted a pass rushing D-Tech, but I always said after that, if it was a day three guy, even though Holton was day three, it'd be Skylar Gill Howard because I want a pass rushing defensive tackle. And all the way back to his Northern Illinois days, he has been a pocket breaker from the interior. And I know they've put up all the stuff about his story. He's overcome a lot. He's overcome injuries. Yes, he is just coming off an injury at the minute, which people might scoff at with Brad and his record, but as a pass rusher at his size, he shouldn't be able to pass rush at his ability. with his size. He shouldn't be able to do it, and yet he does. He is athletically freakish. He has a wide variety of pass rush moves, the ability to get skinny and get through that A gap. Like if you miss your assignment by just even a little bit, he'll get in that gap, and he's got that body and frame where he will just jaw your door wide open because he gets a first step on you, and he's a really good finisher when it comes to getting the quarterback down. I'm low key. I've not been this excited for a day three pick in some years now. Like I remember I used to all the time. It's been a bit meh in the last few years. I'm genuinely excited for what Skylar Gill Howard can do for us. I think he immediately jumps guys like Mekhi Wingo on the depth chart because of what he brings to us. I think he could be so much better than him. And I look forward to seeing, especially if we can get more negative plays in the backfield, get teams into second and 12, second and 13, let Skylar Gill Howard loose with Aleem McNeil on the interior. Try stop them two when Hutch is taking a tackle and a tight end, and then you've potentially got, all the other guys on the other side. I think he could just low-key have such a good year. I'm so, so, so excited about what Skylar Gill Howard can do. Tyre West, I don't think is going to make the roster. It's a throwaway pick. They might like him. He'll probably end up on the practice squad, and they'll try and work on him. Because, like you say, tweener, not really played a lot of football. 800 snaps in 4 years is not much. He's going to need to get a lot better to deal with the rigors of the NFL, but it's a round 7 pick. I'm not going to complain. So, overall, I think I'm a lot happier today now that I've divorced my emotion from my favorite prospects to looking how they fit with the Lions. But yeah, the Rolder one I will not budge on. But overall, I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, I'm a similar place to you. So Derek Moore, I need to do some more tape work, if I'm frank. I'll come on to him in a second. Blake Miller, very, very happy. It's not just floor, it is ceiling too. There's room for him to grow. The Lions are immediately better day one. And really, we've been crying out for the Lions to prioritise now over later. Blake Miller does that. Derek Moore, I hadn't read enough about him. I haven't watched him play enough. The good games he had last year against people like Washington, Maryland, Wisconsin, USC, maybe not so good against Ohio State, but whatever. His highest PFF grade, 41 pressures, 10 odd sacks. He had apparently the highest pass rush win rate per ESPN in the Big Ten, the whole conference. So maybe there's something to work with there, and obviously, as Ant was saying, good tackler too. So someone who can be in the rotation at the very least, we needed that. Rolder, 1 year as a starter, and it was worse than his previous season where he was a rotational guy. But he will be a rotational guy with us. There's no way he's going to be starting. I like the fact that he's a reliable tackler and always kind of has been. We don't want inconsistent players. His problem's going to be coverage. We needed a coverage linebacker. We perhaps didn't need that thumper type necessarily, because we've got Barnes. That's his calling card too, and we're paying him a lot of money to do that. So I see some redundancy with this pick, and that's my fear. But I think he's going to be depth. But I think the only way this pick makes sense is if we're going to more sub-package and less base, because otherwise Roller's going to be on the field too often. He's only had more than 200 snaps in a career once. That's not a lot. So, concerned but willing to be proven wrong. Abney, love it. Especially since it means that we run like 5 deep now at outside corner, and we desperately have needed that depth. If you've got Arnold, Reed, Rock Ya-Sin, Keith Abney, Nick Whiteside, Khalil Dorsey as your 6 on the outside, and then McCreary and Rakestraw at nickel. It finally feels like we actually have some depth at corner that you can rely upon, and hopefully someone's going to separate themselves. Law, the only concern that I have with Law is that Greg Dortch, I feel like, is also that guy. And people keep saying to me, he's only there for 1 year. Okay. He's here for that 1 year. You're having to knock people off the roster because, and it means that Lovett is probably going to miss the roster. Now, I'm not going to cry over a 7th round pick, but then Dortch might move on, but he might not. And then is there some redundancy there? I don't know. But Law and Dortch are similar players to me. So should you only keep one? Maybe? Don't know. Skylar Howard has been my guy for some time. And what I love about this is that we have needed Ali McNeil to be that guy. And when he came back off injury, he wasn't. Understandably. But we want Ali McNeil to be this monster in the reps that he plays, but we don't want that to be a significant number of reps. Ideally, Aleem plays about 50% of snaps. Well, we need someone to be able to replace those reps. Skylar Howard does that. Now, hopefully, we can get the absolute most out of both of them. And with Levi Onwuzurike maybe being able to kick inside and take some of those reps as well when we're playing our 3-4, I think Aleem and Levi should be doing some rotating. Hopefully, what all of this means is that Peyton Turner doesn't make the roster with Tyre West coming in. I think Tyre West, one of West, Turner, Lacey, and Hassanin are going to make the roster. Maybe two. I think it pushes Turner off, fortunately. Let's address our...
I was just about to say, they've done what I've asked them to, and they have finally gotten away from their stubborn insistence on just drafting run blockers. Like you said, with Derek Moore, the pass rush win rate is so much better, and with Skylar Howard, it is a genuine pass rushing defensive tackle. Like, I've been asking for this for a long time. And again, Walmore wasn't my favorite. The fact that they've gone in this direction where they've gotten guys who can win one-on-one and cause more problems in the backfield, I think is a legitimately good change from the way they've drafted in the past. So I will give kudos to the team for doing that. And I know a few of the beat have mentioned it as well, like they seem to have gone away from that stubbornness for just looking at run guys first. Like Skylar Howard at his size and his mass will be great against the run if trained properly, and Derek Moore will be as well. Like, Derek Moore is decent against the run already, so but they've taken more of a balance into equation instead of going way too far in the other direction. So kudos to the Lions for fixing one of their biggest problems when drafting players.
We are going to talk more about the Lions draft and about the UDFAs on Monday next week. Not tomorrow, but in 8 days' time. But just to touch on the UDFAs, there are 9 currently. Quarterback Luke Altmaier from Illinois, guard Melvin Priestley from Illinois, and tight end Miles Kinselman from Tennessee is the offensive side. On the defensive side, interior defensive lineman Aiden Kinaia from Cal, edge Eric O'Neill from Rutgers, and Anthony Lucas from USC. Linebacker Eric Hunter from Morgan State. Have a look at how happy he looks. And cornerback Deshaun Rucker from USF. And defensive back Amaris Brown, UNLV. A couple of bigger names there, some of whom should have been drafted, some of which were maybe not in draftable range by the consensus board, but some were much higher on than others. And then some who aren't moving me particularly, including Kaiania, who, I can't say that fucking name, got $300,000 guaranteed, which is a heck of a guarantee. I've not seen the Lions give that level of guarantees to any UDFA before, so they must like him quite a lot.
He was flipping between going back to college or not, so maybe that's why.
But anyway, what are your thoughts overall on the UDFA class in brief? Because we'll go in depth in it in a week's time.
We got Eric Hunter. Na, 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 da, da, da. You have no idea how excited I was when I woke up to that this morning. I tried to stay up for some of the free agency news last night, but the sleep overpowered me. I woke up and immediately I got a message from someone who's just like, E40's a Lion. I'm like, don't play with me, man. Don't play. And I get up and I see that he is. I'm calling this right now. I've already called it on Twitter. He's making the roster. You don't need to ask me the question about who in our undrafted free agent class is going to make the roster. I know who's going to make this roster. It's Eric Hunter. He is legitimately certified. I've had messages from Gerald and Dave already, both saying he's making the roster. I know he's making the roster. I adore him like no other. 6'4", 220 pounds, out of Morgan State. He is our future ace coverage linebacker. 45 games, 300 tackles, 35 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, 3 interceptions, 12 passes defended, 7 forced fumbles, multiple time team captain, absolute leader of that Bears defense. He's 2 times first time All MEAC. He's an FCS All American, a HBCU All American. This guy is the ultimate leader. He never left that program despite getting injured in 24. He's had multiple offers to move up to bigger programs than him. Morgan State were the only team at that level who offered him coming out of high school. He stayed loyal to the soil to that program, even though he's a much better player than he is. He's one of the most integral parts of that team. He's been a core special teamer every single year. Even as a team captain, he's played as a full-time special teamer, showing that no job is beneath even a team captain. A lot of guys get to that point, they stop playing special teams because they're above it. He is the ultimate type of leader. He lives and breathes football, which is why the Lions will have loved him. He doesn't care about the accolades individually he's got in school. It's all about the program and what it's about. And, he's got a big point to prove. HBCU guys getting drafted. It doesn't happen very often, but more and more year upon year are making rosters and succeeding. And, he wants to help try and prove that point wrong. He is a saint off the field, does a lot of work for the Samaritans. He does school mentoring. Like, he's just an absolute green flag in every single which way possible. But it's that leadership and it's that drive and desire that some unsuspecting linebacker on our team who doesn't take, if any of them don't take their job too seriously or they think they're on this roster and that they're safe, he will have that job off them in the blink of an eye. Some people say he's a little lean. Obviously, the level of football he's at is going to take a little bit of time to adjust to, but he has all the traits of being a good coverage linebacker at the next level, which we do not have at this point. And he will just go out and be the best special teamer on the roster whilst he develops and gets ready. Yeah, he's going to make this roster. I am 100% cast iron in my firm belief about this. These are the picks that Brad needed to start making on day 3 again, that he kind of moved away from. Guys who have a lot of productivity, guys who are getting doubted, maybe not at the biggest scores like Rodrigo, and guys who are just going to come in and they're going to beat someone off the roster just with their sheer level of hard work ethic alone. He's going to do that. And like I say, 6-phase special teamer, does it all. Mark my words, Eric Hunter makes our 53, and we are all going to be very happy with him next year.
There were 2 other people in that UDFA class who were in draftable range per the consensus board. That was both the edge defenders. Anthony Lucas, USC, was in the 120s. Eric O'Neill, I think, was in the early 200s from Rutgers. Obviously, we have got some edge players. I kind of highlighted who they were earlier. But it feels like all of the guys in that sort of rotation are in that sort of range. So I think those UDFAs have a shot. I'm not going to say they're no hopers. I think everyone else is surely going to be practice squad at best. But the edge guys, could they beat out Tyrus Wheat or someone like that? Maybe?
Maybe. Who were the two edges again, sorry?
Anthony Lucas, USC, Eric O'Neill, Rutgers.
I love Eric O'Neill. I know that much. He's been on one of my lists before. I had him as a sleeper player to watch for in the season just gone. The Rutgers edge. So he's another 6'3", 261. I like his size. So he came through James Madison. He's had a fascinating career. He was with Long Island for a couple of years where he was absolutely dominant. Came up for 1 year with James Madison and he was absolutely tremendous, like freaking unbelievable. And then he went to Rutgers last year for 1 year in the Power Four, and I had him as one of those guys moving up a level to keep an eye out on. Now, maybe it didn't work as much, but like 41 pressures, 4 sacks. You had forced fumble in there as well. The run defense, while the grade overall tumbled a bit, it was still 74. Like, he's been a career like elite run defender, and the pressure rates. He's got 180 quarterback pressures in school, so like he's done both facets of this game. And yes, he did struggle to adapt a little bit to the Big Ten, but he'd just come from the FCS up to the Group of Five, so like that was year upon year of playing much better opposition, and like you say, flourished at James Madds. So. He would not be another, I'd be surprised. I would like to see him beat someone like Lacey or someone off a roster and work his way in there. I think the more obvious fit is he's going to go to the practice squad and you can sit and develop him there. If someone was to try and come and poach him, then I'd chuck Lacey away and I'd keep him here. But I really like him. I like him a lot more than Lucas. But again, he's sort of had to work his way up from the very bottom, and he's been very productive in his entire career. So I like what he can do. The other one I've also got my eye on, who I've watched a lot of, is Deshaun Rucker. I love the USF have been a great story the last couple of years. The South Florida team has been, tremendous. The turnaround they've had under Alex Golesh and co there, and Rucker was one I was watching before this season started. Like he had 9 PBUs the other year. Like he's really good in that secondary. He took step forwards this year. His run defense got better, even though it's still not elite. There's a missed tackle problem, which is up at 19%. The tackling needs to get a little bit better, but still, he had a pick, 4 pass breakups this year. The passer rating against him went way down. It's only 76, so he's really good in coverage. He's scrappy. Initially started off at Tennessee, did see some good reps there in the SEC. So, as a scrappy guy who could work his way into our cornerback depth chart, because that's not assured right now either. There's spots to be had down there. Like I think Deshaun Rucker could make an outside shot at possibly surprising people as well. Again, 6 foot, 195, nice build. Yeah, there's a few of these guys I'm looking forward to for sure.
I did mean Tyler Lacey, not Tyra Sweet. Sorry, you're right. My mistake. They're both the same player to me in my head. Yeah, cool. We're going to get into more depth in the draft class for the Lions and the UDFAs in the coming weeks and months. Like I said, player tape breakdowns, all that sort of stuff. Articles going to come out on the website. So more to come. And I think it's time to wrap up this show and indeed our draft coverage for the year. Any last words before we sign off?
Um, Not really. Just I think I'd say again a massive thank you to everybody who has tuned in to all these shows and made them so fun. As Matt constantly says, it's not the same without you guys. If we were doing this to like a crowd of 2 or 3, then we probably wouldn't bother because of the amount of work we put in. And we do try our best. I know we missed a few teams out this year with guests and that, but we have to put an inordinate amount of work into making these right and successful, and then we have to stream them as well and try and be awake and engaging for as most of it as possible. So we hope you've enjoyed what we've done this year. And again, it's not been the easiest of years with what's gone on behind the scenes with Steve and everything like that. So hopefully next year we can come in fully firing and everybody's good. But yeah, I can't thank everyone enough for coming in, supporting the streams, spreading the word, getting everyone out there. Again, a big shout out to all the guests who've come on, who've made these shows what they are. 3 days of us talking about the Lions would be a little boring. So to have all this vast amounts of knowledge come on, and for people to want to come on here as well, some of these guests are top tier. Like they're way above what we are, and they still feel like they can come on here and do it. And to all our great British content creators as well, showing just how much talent there is and how much love and passion there is over here for the NFL. Even if they disagree with Michigan draft picks and I get told to keep going, staying in my lane, it is what it is. But yeah, we just can't thank everyone enough for helping to make these what they are. They're a hell of a lot of effort, but they are the funnest part of the year as well. So, we hope you've enjoyed it. Obviously, drafts are there. Everyone's going to have different opinions of that. But at the end of the day, we are all Lions fans. And in a few months' time, these are our guys now. We're all going to back them. And hopefully, we're going to get back on the trail to a Super Bowl again. And we can all unite as one once more.
Many thanks to everyone as we've been summing up here with the lovely words. Dan Passon, thanks so much, guys. Great draft coverage. Carlton Wood saying, well done, team. Smash the draft. we had Ken saying, I wish you had 100,000 watchers. Me too, man. And Mark saying, amazing coverage detail, guys, and the humour across the days has kept me laughing. Thank you all. Ant summed it up best, so I won't bluster too much further. We will see you in 8 days' time when we have a bit more recap of this draft and a bit more detail on our guys, as Ant rightly puts them now. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you later on. But for now, let's go, Lions. One Pride.
One Pride. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Recording stopped.